becoming infinitely stronger starting from Marvel. Greetings, fellow multiversal adventurers. It's an honor to have you back in the saga that has us all hooked. Official channel statement: this story is 100% epic fiction, so please don't attempt real magic. The results aren't guaranteed and insurance won't cover it. The rights to this masterpiece belong entirely to its brilliant original author. We are just a barge sharing it with you. Do you want to keep being part of this amazing community? Join our ninja army of subscribers on YouTube and give this content a like. And for true fans, our Patreon has exclusive ninjutsu waiting for you. Chapter 201: Immortal Technique, Flowing Water Rock Shattering Fist. Z City, the streets were packed with onlookers. The battle between Silver Fang Bang, ranked 3rd in the S-Class, and the newly promoted S-Class hero who had killed his colleague, the terrifying Hero Killer, had attracted immense attention. Previously, high-level hero battles rarely involved powerful monsters, so S-Class battles were rarely witnessed. But now, with two S-Class heroes, both human, fighting, people instinctively felt safe, thinking that watching the spectacle wouldn't be dangerous. Even though most people instinctively kept their distance, the media reporters and a few spectators who had only come because of the news still crowded the area. Their eyes were filled with excited frenzy, their wide-open eyes clearly showing fine blood vessels. Ribbit. This is it, such a spectacular battle, how can death resist? Yay. I want to see it, absolutely must see it, even if it kills me, yay. An S-Class battle, bring it out and savor it properly, even if it kills me, it's worth the ticket. Even Bai Ye was somewhat speechless at the bloodthirsty expressions of the surrounding crowd. He was absolutely certain that something was wrong with the people's perception of this world. They had absolutely no concept of high-level combat. Even the police subconsciously felt that dealing with those weirdos was as simple as using a pistol, so something was clearly wrong. Looking at the crowd surrounding him, Bang's rising momentum faltered, clearly worried that the fight would affect these people. If he missed, a single blow could kill or injure hundreds or even thousands. Are you afraid these bystanders will die? Bai Ye grinned. Don't worry, I'll control all my power perfectly, not a single bit will leak out, so, hurry up and attack me. Bang didn't speak, because at this moment he didn't think he could lose to Bai Ye. Therefore, the words of this loser, Bai Ye, were utterly unbelievable. Seeing Bang's hesitation, Bai Ye's expression immediately turned cold. I've already made concessions, don't push your luck. With that, he stomped his right foot, and the ground beneath him began to crack and crumble outwards like a spiderweb, the earth within a kilometer radius collapsing violently. Ah! The previously enthusiastic crowd screamed in terror as their bodies plummeted downwards with the collapsing ground. In an instant, the ground beneath their feet sank 10 meters, many breaking limbs in the sudden collapse, groaning in agony. Some tried to climb out of the pit, but the edges were incredibly smooth. A 10-meter distance was impossible for an ordinary person to traverse. Within this kilometer-wide pit, Bai Ye's expression returned to calm as he said, "These people have been chattering away since earlier, it's really annoying me. If you don't stop me soon, it's hard to say what will happen next." This guy, Bang's face was extremely grave as he looked at the unpredictable Bai Ye. The guy in front of him was even worse than the wolf who had expelled from his sect. He knew he had to get serious. Roar! The moment he made up his mind, an incredibly terrifying aura emanated from Bang, causing Bai Ye to pause in surprise. Is this martial arts? Or some kind of magic? Bai Ye scrutinized his opponent, his mind filled with the same questions Ip Man and Master Hung had when watching Master Luo fight in the ring. Even knowing that the difference between each person from S rank onwards was enormous, it still exceeded his expectations. He felt the pressure emanating from his opponent had increased hundreds of times, which was simply outrageous. Bang's muscles, which had been like withered wood, bulged like inflated balloons, and he slammed his right leg into the ground. In an instant, even with Bai Ye's protective force field, the surrounding ground trembled slightly. Bang seemed to break through space and squeezed in front of Bai Ye in a flash, his right hand, with its 5 fingers as sharp as a knife, aimed at Bai Ye's jaw. Something, I can't see clearly. Bai Ye's consciousness uttered this question, followed by a powerful force slamming into his jaw. Pain he hadn't felt in a long time began to spread throughout his body. With the force dispersed, each individual force scattered, causing every cell in his body to tremble slightly, his brain seemingly being shaken and evened out. It's not pure technique, yet it seems related to technique. While suspended in midair, Bai Ye's brain rapidly analyzed his opponent's moves, finally concluding, let's see how many more punches I take. Not injured, A hint of surprise flashed in Bang's eyes, but his hands continued to strike Bai Ye relentlessly. Boom boom boom, each impact caused the ground beneath his feet to sink several millimeters, each move causing minor damage to Bai Ye's body. However, none of the attacks could completely destroy every cell in Bai Ye's body in one strike, so the injuries were healed instantly before they could accumulate. The speed of his attacks is good, but the intervals between each strike are too fatal. He can only land a few hundred hits per second at most. If I wanted to, he would die before he could even make his second move, so technique really isn't enough to compensate for the difference in physical attributes. Bai Ye silently endured the attacks, making this assessment of Bang in his mind 0.1 seconds after the start of the actual battle. Bai Ye, having endured dozens of Bang's attacks, made a judgment. I think I understand. Thinking this, Bai Ye, who had been passively enduring the attacks, slightly raised his right hand. In Bang's narrowed pupils, a familiar starting stance was reflected, and then, boom, in an instant, their hands collided in midair, sending them flying backward. Bai Ye looked down at his palms thoughtfully. So it really was a combination of technique and momentum? The cultivation system of this world is truly strange. I only used 60% of my strength to block his attack. On the other side, Bang's mindset was far less calm. I wasn't mistaken. That was the flowing rock smashing fist. Though still very rudimentary, Bang's eyes were extremely grave, reminding him of his disciple, Garu. No, this speed of progress is absolutely terrifying. He's mastered it in a mere instant. I must finish him off here, or the consequences will be dire. Bang's eyes suddenly filled with killing intent. Thinking about me? The second round is about to begin. If you don't take it seriously, you'll die. Bai Ye smiled, and like Bang a few seconds earlier, he plunged into Bang's arms, unleashing a punch with an eerie aura. Chapter 202 Storming the Hero Association Headquarters. Z-City, countless people huddled in corners, their earlier enthusiasm for watching the spectacle gone. In the very center, two figures clashed repeatedly, the ground beneath their feet trembling slightly and sinking further with each exchange. Bang's expression betrayed his astonishment. Bai Ye's progress far exceeded his expectations. He watched as Bai Ye's flowing water rock-shattering fist, visibly refined with each clash, improved relentlessly. Techniques that ordinary people practiced for months were mastered in a single exchange, the purity of his skill approaching his own. 40%, 35%, 32%, 27%, 24%, Bai Ye remained calm, each punch a combination of power and technique, the proportion of power in each strike steadily decreasing. His physical attributes hadn't improved much, instead, his mastery of the flowing water rock-shattering fist was constantly increasing. In just a few seconds, facing Bang's full-force attack, he only needed to use less than 20% of his strength to parry, relying more on the power of heaven and earth. Somewhat similar to his own position. Responding to Bang's attacks with increasing ease, Bai Ye grinned. Skill, quite amazing. At this moment, Bai Ye was treating Bang as an experience point. As time passed, the battle between the two was no longer evenly matched. Instead, Bai Ye had the upper hand, anticipating Bang's moves before he could strike, intercepting them at the opponent's attack point, and beginning to completely suppress him, making Bang extremely uncomfortable. He's using all my moves, Bang thought bitterly, but these techniques have no copyright. Whoever knows how to use them can use them. Finally, after spending dozens of seconds completely wiping out most of his opponent's accumulated skills, Bai Ye decided to stop. Watching Bang's right fist, which was exerting all its strength, Bai Ye extended his index finger and thumb and gently pinched forward, using less than 1% of his strength to completely stop Bang's attack. Bang's physical abilities were far inferior to Bai Ye's, relying entirely on his sage art flowing rock smash fist to hold on. However, Bai Ye easily mastered this move in less than a minute. Now, his right fist was held by two fingers, and no matter how hard Bang tried, he couldn't pull it out. You're outdated, old man. Bai Ye smiled and gently extended his right hand, skillfully flicking it across Bang's forehead. In an instant, Bang's body glided through the air in a straight line, piercing through the rock wall behind him, flying thousands of meters away. Done. Bai Ye lightly clapped his hands, as if dispersing non-existent dust, then lightly leaped out of the deep pit, leaving the onlookers trapped inside. Minutes later, the association's higher-ups listened to their subordinates' report, their faces grim. We just received news that Mr. Silverfang, ranked 3rd, has been defeated by the Hero Association's killer, One of the higher-ups, thinking of the requests from the reincarnators, asked, should we agree to his S-Class hero's demands? That is, to put the killer on the Hero Association's wanted list, or should we just pretend nothing happened? Another higher-up looked at the satellite image of the terrain collapse in downtown Z City caused by White Knight's attack and couldn't help but say, no, we still have Miss Tornado, Blast, and King. We can't back down when faced with difficulties, a slightly more determined higher-up said. The other higher-ups nodded in agreement, that's right. Although we often can't contact Blast, we still have Miss Tornado. She's ranked second, then hurry up and call Miss Tornado. Even Mr. Silverfang has been defeated. I think she'll definitely take this matter to heart. Just as these higher-ups were discussing this, the entire building shook violently. What's happening? Who's attacking the headquarters building? The previously inexperienced high-ranking members nervously gripped the walls. Their Hero Association headquarters in City A was designed with defenses far exceeding those of ordinary shelters. Even demon-level monsters couldn't easily cause damage, yet it was shaking violently, as if experiencing a major earthquake. Just then, a beam of light shone into the completely enclosed, dimly lit meeting room, followed by increasingly intense beams. The powerful light forced everyone to squint, and they realized that the entire ceiling had been ripped off. A figure stood with his feet planted on the broken wall, one hand holding up the torn upper part of the Hero Association building, seemingly splitting the heavens and earth apart. The newcomer was Bai Ye, his appearance somewhat resembling Atlas, the mythical figure who held up the heavens and earth. His gaze swept over the association's high-ranking members. Looking at their frail bodies, distorted figures, and fearful eyes, Bai Ye's lips curled into a gentle smile. Killer, you, what do you want? A high-ranking member stammered. I should say what you want, right? Who gave you the audacity to issue a warrant for my arrest? Bai Ye sneered. You have some nerve. I advise you to watch your step, or you'll be in big trouble when King, Tornado, and Blast arrive, another high-ranking member said angrily out of fear. Killer, everything is negotiable. I know you're strong, we can talk, another high-ranking member tried to negotiate. But Bai Ye was too lazy to waste words with these people. A stream of saliva shot out like a water sword through the compression of his oral muscles. The sharp water cannon directly blew the brain off the association higher-ranking member in front of him, who he disliked and who was also the ugliest in the room. Screams erupted as he watched the person next to him die, while Bai Ye coldly stared at their ugly behavior under the pressure of life and death. The reason he wasn't bothered by killing the sexy prisoner was because of the utterly absurd power structure of this world. These association leaders, though weak, constantly manipulate the strong, squandering the association's resources with minimal ability. Most of the resources donated by the people end up in their pockets, while the lower-level staff are mostly more righteous than these bloated bastards. These pig-headed idiots, lacking both power and a sense of justice, what right do they have to be above the heroes? The old hero game is over. You bunch of scum, although the game will continue, the rules will be as I envision, Bai Ye said coldly. As he spoke, the situation was already known to countless heroes waiting at headquarters, and a large number of them rushed to the rooftop. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 203 Control Hero Association. What happened? The entire headquarters is disconnected. The breach is on the floor where the high-level meeting is held. Hurry up and protect them. If anything happens to these higher-ranking members, without their management, the association will collapse. At this moment, the entire hero headquarters was in turmoil, and all the heroes remaining at the headquarters were mobilized. The leader, S-rank 11th rank Super Alloy Blacklight, immediately rushed upstairs after discovering the problem, reaching his floor in just a few seconds. Upon arriving, he saw a figure backlit by the sun, seemingly connecting the sky and the earth, linking the two ends of the building solely with his body. This is a nemesis. Super Alloy Blacklight was stunned, not expecting that the one attacking the police would also be a hero. Moreover, among the high-ranking members present, one corpse lay on the ground, blood streaming down its face. Judging from the direction of the blood splatter, the attack clearly came from Bai Ye's side. Whoever it is, since they've already attacked headquarters, I'll use my hard-earned body to subdue you first, Superalloy Darksheen said, his dark muscles brimming with immense power, attempting to subdue Bai Ye on the spot. But before he could even make a move, he was met with a fierce reaction from the association's higher-ups. Superalloy Darksheen, what are you doing? Do you want to betray the Hero Association? Stop right now. Don't be rude to your nemesis. The barrage of insults from the association's higher-ups left Superalloy Darksheen completely bewildered, not understanding what was happening. Wasn't this guy the enemy who attacked the association headquarters? One of these higher-ups had already been killed, and he had come to rescue someone, yet he was being stopped instead. In his confusion, Superalloy Darksheen saw a mocking smile appear on Bai Ye's face. Didn't you hear me? Stand still, Superalloy Darksheen. Do you want to betray the association? Damn it! A hint of resentment appeared on Superalloy Darksheen's face, but he still withdrew from his fighting stance. During this time, many more heroes rushed up from below, looking at the situation with a sense of bewilderment. Seeing the agitated heroes, a high-ranking member calmed them down. Ahem, it's all right now, don't get agitated. Another high-ranking member coughed twice and said, we had some misunderstandings with the Nemesis before. The Nemesis is young and inexperienced, and accidentally tore open the association headquarters. Now that the misunderstanding has been cleared up, you should all step back. That's right, Bai Ye is the most outstanding one among us. Don't you even listen to us? Under the pressure and reassurance of the higher-ups, even though these heroes knew something was amiss, they still retreated with strange feelings. After these people left, the expressions on the faces of these higher-ranking officials relaxed, and they bowed to Bai Ye like dogs, saying, Master, how did we do? Bai Ye couldn't contain his contemptuous smile any longer and burst into wild laughter. HMPH, ha ha ha. This Shinday world is so much fun, a group of powerful people willingly stay under the command of you trash. By controlling you, we can control the whole world. Interesting, very interesting. As he spoke, Bai Ye released his grip, and with a loud bang, the entire Hero Association headquarters reassembled. In the now dimly lit conference room, Bai Ye sat imposingly in his chair, surveying the group. He had to admit, these people were quite useful. They might not be good at fighting monsters, but they could handle over 90% of the problems in society. As for the means to control them, a mere illusion technique would suffice. While not as omnipotent as Kido Matsukami, it was enough to deceive them temporarily. Next, all that's needed is to strengthen mind control and brainwashing, and then cast a spell to eradicate their tongues, and everything will be fine. Now, get to work. Restore my hero ranking, issue a public statement that everything is fine, and report back to me what happened during this meeting, Bai Ye said calmly. At his request, the reincarnators were soon astonished to find that Bai Ye's name was not only not on the wanted list, but had actually returned to his original hero ranking. Damn, those higher-ups chickened out. It's just that I beat Bang, the reincarnators said angrily, feeling like they had lost a bunch of reward points. While these people were criticizing, Bai Ye listened to the reports from these higher-ups at headquarters and understood the reincarnators' two-faced nature. Want to hunt me? Bai Ye looked at the trembling higher-ups who had just broken the illusion with a hint of interest. After a moment's thought, a cruel smile appeared on his lips. I don't need to lift a finger to deal with this trash. Go, have Silver Fang, Tornado, and that B-class rank 3 One-Punch Man kill them all. But, those heroes are all human. They haven't done anything wrong. We can't really persuade the other heroes to do it. A high-ranking member of the association hesitated, but when he looked up, he saw Bai Ye staring at him amicably, and immediately held his breath in fear. You have a point. Most heroes won't go too far with humans. Bai Ye nodded. Then let's smear them. Whether they've done anything wrong isn't up to them, it's up to me. If you want charges, just write them up, make up a few charges and throw them at those heroes to get them to act. Anyway, even if those heroes are powerful, they're all like deaf and blind people. Their news comes entirely from the information you provide. We can easily manipulate them like monkeys, Bai Ye said lazily. After my underlings are defeated, just hand them over to me to kill. I'm short on reward points anyway. Faced with Bai Ye's words, the high-ranking officials nodded vigorously, promising to act immediately. Bai Ye, however, fell into deep thought. Having gained power, he didn't bother consolidating it, but instead began to consider how to change the Hero Association. The original system was too boring. From now on, the Hero Association should be changed according to my ideas, Bai Ye thought to himself, his first thought being to increase the pay. The next day, As the heroes woke up, they found that the news was reporting on the association's major reforms. Everyone was stunned to see Bai Ye, who was wanted by the police the day before, and then appeared on television the next day to talk about his reform ideas. What had happened in one night? Chapter 204 Early morning, in the abandoned, uninhabited area of Z City. Saitama yawned slightly, got up from his makeshift bed on the floor, and turned on the TV to see Byakuya being interviewed by a reporter. Oh, what's going on? Saitama scratched his bald head, a little confused in his eyes. You mean the Hero Association is going to give the heroes money? The female reporter held the microphone to Byakuya, her tone gentle. Yes, the Hero Association will be undergoing a top-down reform. The first thing is to increase the monthly compensation for each hero to 10 times what it used to be. Byakuya crossed his legs and calmly responded to the reporter's interview. Next, our association will increase the weight of strength in the hero assessments, reaching 90%. Heroes who fail the strength assessment will even be demoted. On the TV, Byakuya handled the reporter's answers with ease, but Saitama had completely ignored what followed. He gripped the sides of the TV with both hands, his eyes almost touching the screen, his attention completely focused on the hero subsidy, while his brain was working at an unprecedented speed. 500,000 yen, at least 500,000 yen coming in next month. After a brainstorming session, Saitama's eyes widened. This was before he even reached A rank. With so much money, can't I just throw away every bowl of porridge I eat? Saitama's heart trembled. Just then, a phone rang, drawing his attention. Hello, yes, this is One Punch Man. What's related to money? Instantly, Saitama's expression turned serious, his nostrils flaring slightly from the effort. Got it, I'm coming right now to deal with the scoundrel hero. Inside the Hero Association headquarters, in the huge training room on the lowest floor, only a man and a woman stood facing each other in the vast, empty room. Tornado, arms crossed, calmly looked at the long-haired man before her and said, So, you're the one who killed Sexy Prisoner? I think you need to be in jail more than he is. Oh, Tornado-san, do you have a problem with me? The Hero Association has already declared my actions perfectly acceptable, Bai Ye asked casually, sitting in his chair with his legs crossed. He hadn't expected the news to reach her ears. Who was so talkative? She deserved to die. Who cares about the association? You're blatant killing a fellow hero Sexy Prisoner, and the way you're looking at me now, makes me very uncomfortable. If you don't give me an explanation, you can expect to go to jail, Tornado said coldly, her nen power surging, causing her to float slowly. A reason? I happen to have one here. Looking at the girl before him, Bai Ye gently touched his soft lips with his finger. For example, your sister, Hellish Blizzard. What do you mean? Tatsumiki's expression grew even colder, and terrifying psychic power surged forth, grabbing Bai Ye and pulling him from his seat, as if she would twist him into a pretzel if he said the wrong thing. It's nothing, you just don't want her to be without a hero, do you? Bai Ye smiled slightly. If she knew that it was because her sister attacked a high-ranking member of the association that her hero qualification was revoked, she would probably start to resent you. Tatsumiki's arm paused, but she still said coldly, Do you think I'll let you go just because you say these things? I've read Hellish Blizzard's file. She's always wanted to follow in her sister's footsteps, unwilling to accept her own low strength. She's a very hard-working girl. If all that perseverance suddenly disappeared, and she knew that her sister was a scumbag who disregarded the law and bullied others at will, she would definitely be very disappointed, causing her life to fall apart. Bai Ye said with interest. This kind of role-playing as a villain in Japanese anime was somewhat addictive to him. At his words, Tatsumiki's movements paused slightly, then she released her psychic control over Byakuya. So, talk really works, Byakuya thought absurdly. Would such a powerful being submit to rules? If he had that ability, he would have rebelled long ago. HMPH, I'll let you off this time, but don't let me see you again. Considering her sister's feelings, Tatsumiki's long, dark green hair fluttered in the wind as she stood up to leave. Watching the departing girl, the confident Byakuya suddenly decided to risk his life for a joke. Hey, Miss Tatsumiki, there's one more question I've always wanted to ask you. Please answer it. Tatsumiki turned around, looking at Byakuya without speaking, implying she had something to say. Yes, something I've always been curious about. What's under your split skirt, Tatsumiki? No one had ever asked her this before, leaving her confused. So, are you not wearing anything underneath? or blue and white stripes or a thong. Because of the psychic barrier, Bai Ye couldn't see anything and could only ask with the curiosity of someone learning a foreign language. Ah, you're so infuriating. You really deserve to die, I can't stand it anymore, accompanied by a furious shout. After Tatsumaki reacted, a terrifying surge of psychic power poured out towards Bai Ye. But Bai Ye, who was already prepared, had a bottle of scarlet reagent in his hand at some point, and retreated into the ethereal space to use it. It seems that our Miss Tatsumaki is a little shy and unwilling to tell me honestly. It's okay, I'll break it open myself in a while, Bai Ye said, instantly activating the PIM particle device. The next moment, under the influence of the particles, Bai Ye's height increased dramatically, his 3 dimensions expanding proportionally in an instant. Knowing that Tatsumaki was looking for him, he had anticipated a fight and had arranged the meeting place in the association's massive training room. In this space, his enlarged form didn't feel cramped, even a full-on, bone-crushing clash was more than enough. This demonstrated Bai Ye's thorough preparation. Simultaneously, as his body grew, Bai Ye's strength also increased 10 times, 100 times, 1,000 times, 10,000 times. In just a few moments, as his body grew to colossal several meters tall under Tatsumaki's astonished gaze, his physical strength increased a millionfold. Is this the PIM particle? Now I am terrifyingly strong. You are no match for me. Bai Ye stared at Tatsumaki, exiting the ethereal space. His massive, all-encompassing hands then reached for Tatsumaki's legs. He was determined to see clearly whether she was wearing blue and white stripes or a thong under her skirt. Chapter 205 The Ultimate Bladder Sword. When, in the parasite world, Kanaka Mishima was browsing the chat group as usual when she noticed that Byakuya's level had suddenly jumped to level 8. 2 levels in an instant. How did she do that? A question mark appeared above Kana's head. At that moment, in the Hero Association's basement training room, Byakuya, standing 100 meters tall, wasn't paying attention to the dark green curly-haired girl in front of him. His mind focused on the data on the panel. Name, Byakuya. Lifespan 19, not considered. Strength, temporary 7.3 plus 0.6, 5.9 strength 15 trillion, 10 cap 12 tons, movement speed 10,000 Mach, constitution, temporary 7.4 plus 0.5, 5.9 cultivation speed, 1,500 strands of internal energy per second, currently possessing 10,000 years of energy, spirit, temporary 7.3 plus 0.6, 5.9 charisma, 1.4 plus attribute points to be used. 0. Note, information in parentheses is not visible to the protagonist. Using PIM particles to amplify physical attributes will not increase additional attribute points, which is a bit of a pity. Looking at the information in the attribute panel, Bai Ye's mind fell into deep thought. On the opposite side, Tornado observed the man in front of her. Suddenly, his body had increased in size by 10 times. Could this guy also be a monster? Thinking this, the girl coldly said, HMPH, you really are a monster. I was still hesitating about how to deal with you, but now that you've shown your true colors, then prepare to die. It's just a mere body enlargement. I've fought much bigger monsters before, Tornado thought, a torrent of psychic power surging forth from her body, sweeping towards Bai Ye. Everything in its path would be pulverized, but against the enhanced Bai Ye, the attack was nothing. Lost in thought, she allowed the opponent's all-consuming psychic power to pass by. How could this be? Looking at the tall man standing motionless, Tornado's expression changed slightly. Not only the man, but even the surrounding environment seemed to have transported her to a compact neutron star. Her psychic attack hadn't even destroyed the chair beside her. Tornado sensed something was wrong and glared at Byakuya. What trick did you play? Why is my psychic power completely ineffective? Is it an illusion? Her questioning interrupted Byakuya's thoughts. He looked at Tornado and slowly said, Are you so eager for me to torture you? As soon as he finished speaking, Byakuya's body swayed slightly and disappeared before Tornado's eyes. His body, enhanced 1,000,000 times, was propelled by a force field. The next moment, a massive, sky-covering hand grabbed the girl's body before Tornado could react and carried her away. Boom! Inside the Hero Association headquarters building, a violent tremor followed, and a humanoid opening several meters high appeared. When Tornado realized what was happening, she saw Byakuya dragging her to a desolate wilderness of yellow sand. Looking at her surroundings, Tornado realized that in less than a second, she had already left the city. Sorry, my power suddenly increased, and I wasn't used to it. I ran a little too far. Holding the girl in his hands, Bai Ye smiled and said, now that we're out, let's continue with what we were doing before. Let's see if you're wearing a vacuum or, Bai Ye said casually, his two huge hands gripping Tatsumaki's petite and delicate legs like toothpicks, slowly prying them apart. Tatsumaki felt her legs being unavoidably pulled apart, and at the same time, the other person's head-sized eyes were peering down her skirt. She couldn't help but roar, you pervert, die? As she roared, her psychic power, enough to raise a country to the ground, poured wildly towards Bai Ye, but it could only lightly brush against Bai Ye's hair. Tisk, it seems you don't have any awareness of being a weakling. Feeling annoyed that his curiosity had been disturbed, Bai Ye said, looks like I need to give you a little punishment. After saying that, Bai Ye released his right hand, his fist-thick index finger pressed against the girl's soft abdomen, gently poking downwards with controlled force. The sudden increase in pressure on her abdomen caused Tatsumaki to cry out in pain, and her relentless psychic attacks involuntarily ceased. After giving the girl a small punishment, Bai Ye withdrew his hand, but the moment he did, her terrifying psychic power surged back. Feeling his hair being blown around, Bai Ye wasn't annoyed at all. He had plenty of time, since Tatsumaki was so determined, he might as well play along. Thinking this, Bai Ye poked his finger into her lower abdomen again, causing her pain once more. After withdrawing his hand, he unleashed another wave of psychic energy. This repeated for 7 minutes. After Bai Ye withdrew his hand for the 321st time, Tatsumaki finally stopped attacking and glared at Bai Ye angrily, cursing him incessantly. But for Bai Ye at this moment, the little brat was an essential part of his fantasies. He simply smiled, parted her legs, and finally got a glimpse of the beautiful sight. Below Tatsumaki's fair and soft waist and abdomen, a white, elastic triangular panty covered her private parts. Two plump and elastic legs were being forcefully stretched into V shape, clearly revealing the bare head printed on the front of the fabric. White bare panties. You're almost 28, yet you're still acting so young. Suddenly, I feel a little disappointed, Bai Ye chuckled maliciously, eliciting a furious glare and curses from the girl. 8 Yalu. Wash inside. Hente. Kyuzu. Kichi guy, oh, looks like you haven't learned your lesson. You need a proper purification, Bai Ye said. The next moment, the girl felt a sudden chill in her lower body, making her tailbone go numb. Wait, what are you doing? Realizing what she had lost, Tornado panicked, her heart trembling violently as she looked at the giant, several meters tall, grabbing her. Nothing, just want you to take a hit from the ultimate bladder sword, Bai Ye sneered, raising the 1.8-meter flagpole high. Aim row, Tornado finally couldn't help but exclaim, completely panicking as she looked at Bai Ye, who was even taller and stronger than her. Scared now? Isn't it too late? Bai Ye sneered. But although that's what he said, Tornado wasn't Index, nor was she the fourth sister, Little Sheep, and couldn't pull off such a bizarre scene as in the manga. So, under Tornado's terrified gaze, Bai Ye's body visibly returned to normal, and the numbers on his attribute panel continued to decrease. Name, Bai Ye. Lifespan: 19, not considered. Strength: 7, 9, 6, 0. Constitution: 7, 9, 6, 0. Spirit: 7, 9, 6, 0. Unused attribute points: 0. Chapter 206, Beat the Tornado to Her Knees. Is he alive? Looking at the boy clutching his ankle, now back to normal, Tatsumaki couldn't help but relax. At least she wouldn't be shattered by the car. But at the same time, as Byakuya returned to normal, the courage to fight resurfaced in the girl's heart. I might be able to kill him now, Tatsumaki couldn't help but think, her psychic powers stirring. Byakuya, of course, understood her thoughts and said softly, Tatsumi-chan, it seems you haven't grasped the difference between us. To ensure my fragile body isn't damaged by your psychic powers, I hope you won't resist me from now on. After all, I voluntarily withdrew from my gigantic state so as not to hurt you. If you dare to resist, remember your sister, Hellish Blizzard, should be in Z City right now. I might go visit her. Byakuya spoke simply, but in Tatsumaki's eyes, the boy before her was just putting on a brave face without any real power. So he really has no power. A vengeful rage flashed in Tatsumaki's eyes. As Bai Ye prepared to attack, A torrent of psychic energy poured out from Tatsumaki. In an instant, Bai Ye's head was disintegrated into basic particles by the psychic energy. But at the same time, with her counterattack, Bai Ye was no pushover either, immediately fighting back, Bai Ye fiercely attacking Tatsumaki. Instantly, intense pain filled Tatsumaki's nerves, causing tears to well up in her eyes. Looking at the headless Bai Ye before her, Tatsumaki's rage reached its peak. "It's alright, consider this the price I pay to kill you," Tatsumaki said coldly. But then, a cold voice rang in her ear. "Hey, you really don't listen, how is that possible?" His head was clearly broken down into basic particles by me. Before Tornado's brain could fully process what was happening, Bai Ye, whose head had regrown, immediately roared, "Serious subjugation series, evil. Immediate." Thrust. The next moment, various sensations flooded Tornado's brain, causing her to unconsciously scream, "Ah! You dare!" Watching Bai Ye's retreating figure, even though her body was extremely weak, Tatsumaki still forced herself to levitate using her psychic powers. However, Tatsumaki's black dress had already been shattered in the battle, only fueling Bai Ye's desire. "How, trying to kill me with psychic powers again?" Bai Ye stood there indifferently, spreading his hands. "Come on, attack me all you want. Every time you hit me, Hellish Blizzard will suffer a little more." Tatsumaki. Looking at the man before her, even though Tatsumaki wanted to tear him to pieces, she had to admit from their previous exchange that she couldn't kill Bai Ye in her current state. Therefore, the proud Tatsumaki gave in. Watching Bai Ye's departing figure, she bit her lower lip reluctantly and said, I'm sorry, could you please let Fubuki go?" "Huh? What are you saying?" "The trembling tornado is actually apologizing to me." Bai Ye turned to look at Tatsumaki, then firmly said, "I refuse. I gave you a chance just now," but just as Bai Ye was about to leave, she felt Tatsumaki tightly grab her arm. Please don't lay a hand on Fubuki, I'll do anything." You only think about your own sister." Bai Ye looked down at the petite girl. After hesitating for a moment, Bai Ye suddenly thought of a great idea and said, "Since you're so protective of her, then you can suffer for her." Gently pinching Tatsumaki's chin, Bai Ye slowly said, "When I want to visit her, please take the initiative to relieve my stress. If you can't do that, then I'll go visit Fubuki next. Can you do that?" Bai Ye's gaze went through the other's dark green curly hair and directly into Tatsumaki's eyes. The girl clenched her small fists tightly, then relaxed them as if in despair, nodding resignedly. "I need a clear answer, are you willing, or not?" Bai Ye pressed. I can." Tornado gritted her teeth. "Very well, then for Fubuki's sake, let's begin our second time." Bai Ye released her hand with satisfaction, and Tornado lowered her head in resignation. But Tornado had no time to wallow in self-pity. What awaited her was the rapid commencement of the second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth. Damn it, I'm struggling to write this, while Bai Ye is enjoying himself. Holy crap. Late at night, Bai Ye carried the girl, exhausted both physically and mentally, who had fallen into deep sleep, back to the association headquarters. "Karmic man, you're finally back. Are you alright?" Seeing Bai Ye return, the staff finally breathed a sigh of relief. Tornado's sudden appearance, the simultaneous disappearance of the two, and the inexplicable large hole, they had assumed something had happened to Bai Ye. "It's alright, I just used up a lot of energy trying to subdue Tatsumaki," Bai Ye said calmly. Only then did the staff notice the sleeping girl on Bai Ye's back. Tatsumi, did you defeat her?" "Yes, it took me most of the day." "Prepare some food for me, I'm a little hungry." "Bring it to my room later," Bai Ye said, passing the staff member as he headed towards the rooftop. Watching Bai Ye's departing figure, the staff member couldn't help but sigh. No wonder he's a nemesis. He even defeated Tatsumaki. Back in his room, after the staff brought the food, Bai Ye gently put Tatsumaki down, saying, "Wake up, eat something first. Let's prepare for the 9th battle later." At his call, Tatsumaki opened her eyes wearily, looking at Bai Ye and saying, "Are you some kind of freak with unlimited stamina? This is just a deal with you. Hurry up and eat." "Do you expect me to feed you?" Bai Ye said coldly. Because of the deal with Tatsumaki, whenever he had a thought, Tatsumaki would have to fight in Fubuki's place. But Bai Ye always had his own ideas, so in the following days, Longwan was forced to stay by Bai Ye's side. Chapter 207 Tornado's Band-Aid. Several days later in City A, Saitama arrived from City Z, carrying a portrait of a character, and swaggered towards his destination. After searching for a while, he found a tall building, looked it over, and then lightly leaped to the rooftop. On the rooftop, Ivanov and his henchmen were having an open-air party. In the midst of the revelry, a bald man jumped up, immediately attracting everyone's attention. "You're that one-punch man, right?" One of Ivanov's reincarnated henchmen, recognizing Saitama, snapped. "What are you doing here, a B-class hero? Can't you see this is a gathering of A-class and S-class heroes? Get down here." Saitama ignored the reactions of the reincarnated heroes, instead pointing the portrait at Ivanov and saying, "Are you Ivanov?" He then compared the portrait to Ivanov's. They looked exactly alike. Ivanov was surprised that it was him being called. "It's me. What do you want?" Saitama looked at Ivanov and said, "The association told me that you've killed dozens of competitors for money for the wealthy and nosy these past few days, which is a serious violation of the hero code, so they sent me to defeat you and lock you up. Is that true?" "Oh, the association sent a mere B-class hero like you to interfere in my affairs." Ivanov's thick eyebrows furrowed tightly. Based on the news about Bai Ye suddenly appearing a few days ago, it was indeed as he had guessed. The Hero Association had been controlled by the Nemesis. Thinking this, he stepped forward and looked down at Saitama, saying, "So what if I did it? You don't want to kill me, do you? Don't think you can be arrogant just because you have the strength of an S-class hero. I'm only an S-class because I PFFT." Before he could finish speaking, Saitama punched Ivanov in the abdomen, and a mouthful of blood spurted from the burly man's mouth. "Shut up, this is so annoying. Just knowing it was you is enough. Now come with me to jail and turn yourself in," Saitama said irritably, but the other reincarnators were completely stunned. Their boss had been punched and bled. Even Byakuya couldn't do that. Just who was this bald guy? But there was no time to think. The moment Saitama launched his attack, the surrounding reincarnators immediately joined forces and swarmed him. In an instant, various colorful light waves and energy surrounded Saitama, the terrifying pressure unstoppable, threatening to blast Saitama and the entire street to smithereens. Looking at the attacks around him, Saitama remained calm, recalling his private conversation with the association's higher-ups. "Mr. Saitama, our investigation has revealed that the S-class hero has established a powerful network of influence around him, with numerous S-class and A-class heroes working under him. I have substantial evidence indicating that other heroes around Ivanov are also colluding with him. Therefore, if any other heroes resist during your arrest, for your safety, we will allow unlimited retaliation and arrest them all. By the way, for each hero who makes a move, we will offer a reward of 10,000 yen. Recalling last night's conversation, Saitama's eyes widened as he observed the men and women attacking him. 320,000 yen just for defeating these people? That's almost half a month's hero allowance. That's too good to be true. Facing the various attacks surrounding him, Saitama clenched his right fist and unleashed a series of normal punches, continuous normal punches. Instantly, a terrifying fist wind roared, and all the attacks were deflected. The unparalleled force of the punch sent all the reincarnators flying, coughing up blood and unconscious, but under Saitama's controlled power, not a single one died. 320,000 in hand, huh? Saitama was only halfway through his sentence when he found himself gripped tightly by a large hand. Looking up, he was shocked to see that Ivanov, whom he had previously defeated, was now 10 times larger, glaring at him with furious eyes. "You bald man, you made me waste an incredibly precious item. You and Byakuya deserve to die," Ivanov roared angrily, grabbing Saitama and slamming him to the ground. As the building vanished, the entire city of A shook violently. Inside the Hero Association headquarters, Tatsumaki, now dressed in a tight-fitting, split-hem black dress, felt a tremor beneath her feet in surprise. Beside her, Byakuya, who had been resting on the soft bed, was also awakened by the tremor, his gaze meeting Tatsumaki's as he looked up. You wouldn't be thinking of." Instantly, cold sweat beaded on Tatsumaki's forehead, and she instinctively gripped the white pillow on the bedside table. Because she had to bear the pain, or perhaps the pleasure, for Fubuki, the continuous toil over the past few days had caused even her body, which was no less robust than that of an A-rank hero, to begin to feel a dull ache in her back and weakness in her legs. She was so exhausted that she could barely walk without Nen power. There's an old Chinese saying, there are only oxen that die from exhaustion, not land that's been overplowed. Initially, Tatsumaki had even come with the intention of thoroughly draining this guy. But this guy seemed tireless, able to persist until the very end. What's the point of this lowly caterpillar having so much stamina? Tatsumaki thought to herself, feeling that she had unknowingly sacrificed too much for her sister, hellish Fubuki. You guessed right, but I still have something important to do, Bai Ye said, gently stroking Tatsumaki's dark green curly hair. Let's go. We might need your methods next, Bai Ye said calmly, but seeing Tatsumaki's limp body and the thin layer of sweat clinging to her smooth skin, he realized that she was too weak to walk. It's okay, I'll take you there, Bai Ye smiled and lifted Tatsumaki by the back of her neck, pressing her petite body against his right arm. But then, the sensation on his arm made him pause. You're still wearing a band-aid? Bai Ye felt a slight chafing on his arm. Tatsumaki's face immediately flushed red as she scolded, Baka. You were the one who made me use a band-aid to plug the leak before bed. Okay, then I'll peel it off for you and change into some normal panties, Bai Ye said, reaching in to gently peel off the band-aid. Ugh, as the band-aid was removed, the inexplicable stimulation made Tatsumaki gasp, covering her mouth. Then Bai Ye gently placed Tatsumaki on the bed and urged, go change quickly, I don't want to change your panties for you, do I? Tatsumaki, her face still red, forced herself to sit up and said, no need, I can do it myself. Chapter 208 Harvesting Leaks. Returning to the battlefield in City A, a colossal figure, 20 meters tall, stood atop a massive meteorite crater. This was Ivanov after using PIM particles, now glaring furiously at the figure within the crater. He had so easily used the level 12 item, it was utterly absurd. Looking down at the figure below, Ivanov raised his right hand and roared, you damned bald dog, you'll pay for my losses along with this entire city. His right fist was about to strike like lightning when, sensing something amiss, Saitama stomped through the ground, calmly delivering a punch to Ivanov's face before the giant could even move. Boom! The previously imposing and powerful Ivanov didn't last longer than the other monsters. After a slight tremor in the air, he crashed to the ground, instantly crushing a large section of buildings. Saitama retracted his right fist and slowly descended from the sky, letting out a long sigh of relief. That was close. City A was almost destroyed. Looking at the unconscious reincarnators around him, Saitama counted, with Ivanov, that's 420,000 yen in income, enough for me to eat 2,000 bowls of ramen. This money is really easy to earn. While counting, he took out his phone and took a group photo of the fallen reincarnators. After uploading it to the association headquarters as evidence, he turned and left, leaving the reincarnators still unconscious on the spot. A few minutes later, Bai Ye, having received the news, arrived at the scene. Looking at the chaotic scene around him, he shook his head and sighed. As expected, professional matters should be left to professionals. Nemesis, it really is you. A weak voice rang out from a corner, and a reincarnator who had regained consciousness stared at Bai Ye and said fiercely, well, there's still one survivor with decent recovery ability. He's yours. Ignoring the reincarnator's words, Bai Ye slowly said to Tatsumaki. On his right forearm, a pair of normal-sized panties sat astride a tattered tornado, her arms wrapped around Bai Ye's neck as she coldly said, HMPH, I know, I don't need your reminder. As soon as she finished speaking, her psychic power emerged from her body, a flash of green light instantly enveloping the reincarnator and controlling him. Then, all the reincarnators, including Ivanov, floated up, lining up in front of Bai Ye in descending order of size. Psychic power is really convenient, Bai Ye remarked, then swung his right hand sharply. With a flash of sharp, knife-like energy, blood gushed from the necks of the reincarnators before him. 33 reincarnators died instantly. Because these people had already been put on the wanted list when Saitama dealt with them, the reward points on Bai Ye's God Space panel were steadily increasing. Kill one dragon level opponent, reward 10,000 reward points. Kill one dragon level opponent, reward 10,000 reward points. Kill one demon level opponent, reward 1,000 reward points. In just a short while, Bai Ye had already earned tens of thousands of reward points, and several hours later, the entire God Space was in chaos because of his actions. The reincarnators present were all top-tier figures in the God Space, at least ranked in the top 1,000, with Ivanov ranking first on the entire planet, unmatched by anyone. But at this moment, in Bai Ye's hands, these reincarnators were like leaks, killed instantly by Bai Ye. When the new reincarnator rankings were refreshed, those reincarnators would find their rankings rising like a rocket. Looking at the reward point notifications, Bai Ye nodded in satisfaction. It wasn't in vain that he spent several days deliberately smearing these people. He took out his phone from his pocket, swiped the phone number of the Hero Association staff, and dialed it. Those evil heroes have all been cleaned up. Remember to come and clean up the mess, Bai Ye said into the phone. Oh, and remember to raise One Punch Man's ranking to S-class afterwards, and keep up with the publicity. Worried other heroes might object? Just say I promised, and if they have any complaints, they can come and talk to me. Okay, get it arranged as soon as possible. After giving a few casual instructions, Bai Ye hung up the phone and headed towards the Hero Association. On his forearm, Tornado sat calmly and said coldly, I'll do you a favor, and you'll have to come at least 3 times in a few days. No, 4 times, alright, I was planning on 7 times today, so let's make it 17. Subtract 4, and that leaves 13, Bai Ye teased as he walked. Tornado's face immediately turned red. She hadn't expected that even though she had helped, she would still have to come 5 more times. Thinking that if it really was 13 times tonight, then after she and Bai Ye went inside, her kidneys would probably be ruined. She immediately opened her mouth in a fit of rage and bit Bai Ye's cheek, whimpering, Ugh, you're cheating. Alright, I was just teasing you. Bai Ye felt his cheek being torn and wet by her silver teeth, and could only soothe her gently. Then let's call it a day. You're really not coming today? Don't lie to me. Tatsumaki gently released Bai Ye's cheek. Why was this guy suddenly so agreeable? She thought her biting would make him even more unrestrained tonight, but this was it, a sudden change of heart? In an instant, knowing there were no special activities tonight, Tatsumaki felt no pain in her back or legs, and her mischievous side almost kicked in, nearly challenging Bai Ye to do it 10 more times. Next I'm considering taking care of that thing called the Monster Association. There's still more than a month left, which should be enough. Monster Association, what is that? More than a month? You're not going to die soon, are you? Tatsumaki blurted out. The familiar feeling from the past few days returned, flooding her brain and almost making her scream with pleasure. If you can't speak properly, you'll be dislocating your jaw tonight, Bai Ye warned, withdrawing his hand speechlessly. But after a while, he explained, there's a guy in the Monster Association with top-tier dragon-level strength. Shouldn't we trick Saitama into going and wiping them out? Is this Saitama you're talking about? That bald guy, very strong? Tatsumaki asked, thinking of the bald man after recovering. Without the aura of a strong person, it was impossible to tell. Very strong, or rather, his rate of strengthening is unprecedentedly fast, Bai Ye said. Thinking about how Saitama had been constantly pestering him to fight lately, he couldn't help but consider satisfying his fighting desires sometime. I've decided. If everything goes smoothly, I'll have a small spar with him before I return, Bai Ye said. Chapter 209 Heroes Meeting. Late at night, 100,000 words of detailed battle between White Knight and Tornado were cut. On the internet, the news of 34 A-class and above high-ranking heroes dying after being placed on a wanted list yesterday instantly stirred up a massive storm. Since the Hero Association's founding, although monsters have been constantly appearing, and at an increasingly higher frequency, the total number of hero deaths has never exceeded 10. A-class and above heroes have suffered minimal losses. Aside from those who retired voluntarily or due to injury, only Sexy Prisoner has been reported dead. But the sudden deaths of 34 high-ranking heroes in just one day naturally caused widespread astonishment. The Hero Association's response to external questions was very simple. These listed heroes are spies infiltrated by the Monster Association. Subsequently, the Hero Association released information about the Monster Association. The Monster Association's goal is to destroy the Hero Association and then rule the entire Earth. About 20 of these monsters are of demon level or higher, requiring S-class heroes to defeat. This news quickly overshadowed the hero deaths. Even the S-class heroes were shocked, realizing that such a powerful force existed in the shadows. While these people were inquiring with the Hero Association, they received another piece of information. The intelligence came from the S-class hero, King. The association publicly announced that King had been surrounded by multiple monsters while obtaining this information. Although he survived, he had lost his fighting ability. The next morning, at the entrance of the Hero Association headquarters, King, with his Emperor engine activated, nervously stared at the staff member in front of him. He was preparing to receive his fate. The staff member in a black suit said sternly, "We regret to inform you, Mr. King, that because you do not meet the Hero Association's requirements, Your hero's status will be officially revoked starting today. As for the resources you previously obtained from the association will not take them back. Publicly, we will announce that you are seriously injured in the battle against the Monster Association and are unable to perform hero duties. We hope you can cooperate. The staff member spoke with a hint of helplessness. After the White Knight reforms, the Hero Association placed greater emphasis on strength. Without a certain level of power, no matter how many missions were completed, one could not reach a higher rank. Furthermore, when upgrading a hero's rank, each serving hero must undergo a physical test in the presence of multiple referees to confirm their suitability for the new role, with at least one test per year. Having just passed the test, the supposedly strongest hero, King, turned out to be just a physically weak, ordinary person with no superpowers. The so-called Emperor engine was merely a slightly faster heartbeat, lacking any other distinguishing features. This was a massive scandal. Upon learning this, the association's higher-ups collectively broke down, and after a meeting, decided to cover it up as much as possible, leading to the current situation. I understand. I've wanted to explain this for years, but either I didn't have the chance or you didn't believe me. Now I can finally relax, hearing that he didn't have to pay compensation. King's heartbeat gradually calmed, a sense of relief washing over him. The staff member glanced at King with disappointment, then turned and walked into the association without another word. Watching the staff member's retreating figure, King sighed softly, then felt a hand rest on his shoulder. A concerned voice rang in his ear, "Mr. King, are you alright? The news says you were ambushed by the Monster Association and have completely lost your fighting ability." King turned around and found Atomic Samurai with his hand on his shoulder, observing him. He hurriedly explained, "It's alright, it's just that I overused my abilities and can't recover them anymore. I can only be an ordinary person from now on, that's such a pity." Atomic Samurai sighed after receiving the reply, "So what do you plan to do next? Do you need my help?" "It's alright, even without superpowers, I'm a gaming expert. I can make a living just by playing games," King said confidently, then asked, "But Mr. Atomic Samurai, why did you suddenly come to the Hero Association?" "Of course, it's because of the information about the Monster Association that you risked your life to bring out." Bang, with bandages wrapped around his body and multiple broken bones, stepped forward with a cane and said, "Most of the S-class and above heroes have arrived here to deal with the threat of the Monster Association." Hearing Bang say this, King immediately broke out in a cold sweat and chuckled dryly. "Oh, I see." After exchanging a few pleasantries with King, the two went to the conference room, where several heroes were already waiting. Among them, Bang noticed White Knight's figure first. Bai Ye was leisurely leaning back in his chair. When Bang entered, he glanced at him briefly before ignoring him. Tornado, on the other hand, sat at the table opposite Bai Ye, yawning occasionally, looking somewhat exhausted. "Are you Mr. Nemesis?" A man whose body was mostly modified with mechanical parts entered from outside. Upon seeing Bai Ye, he said seriously, "I am Genos, Sata's apprentice. Nice to meet you." "Oh, Bai Ye, you're here too?" A bald man appeared behind Genos. "How did you decide on the challenge invitation?" "No problem. I've thought about it carefully. The official duel will be in a month. I'll let you know then." As Bai Ye spoke, Sata's eyes immediately lit up. He had previously thought Bai Ye possessed a physique similar to his own. Would they be able to fight head-on in a month? After waiting another half hour, as the S-class heroes arrived one after another, a high-ranking member of the association walked in. After scanning the room, he sighed, "It seems Blast still hasn't arrived. Let's get straight to the point. As you all have probably heard, the information regarding the Monster Association has been confirmed. To deal with this impending threat, we must prepare in advance," the high-ranking official said solemnly. "Therefore, we are preparing to assemble and subdue the monsters. According to the intelligence provided, the Monster Association's lair is underground in Z City. To prevent the disaster from escalating, we should storm in within a day before they can react and wipe out all the enemies." At this moment, Child Emperor raised his hand and questioned, "Wait, isn't this a bit too rushed? We're not even ready yet." The other heroes present also had varying expressions. They hadn't expected the time to be so tight. Were they really going to face a monster siege before they could even get themselves into peak condition? If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 210, Overpowering All Heroes. Faced with Child Emperor's doubts and the hesitation of the other heroes, the association's higher-ups naturally had their reasons. Even you haven't reacted yet, let alone the monsters. If the enemy runs away because they're afraid of our strength, it will be difficult for us to handle. As for the leader of this expedition, it will be led by the newly promoted S-class hero, One Punch Man. We believe he can handle the role of leader well. Me, Saitama, who had been in a daze the whole time, immediately perked up upon hearing the association's words. Genos, on the other hand, didn't change his expression. In his opinion, Saitama was the strongest, and it was only natural for him to be the leader. Why make this newly promoted hero the leader? Is he that strong? Atomic Samurai asked. The other heroes also had strange expressions, not understanding the association's thinking. This was suggested by the Monster Association's nemesis, and all the traitors within the association that were previously hidden by the Monster Association were dealt with by One Punch Man alone. His strength is evident to all based on this achievement, the association's higher-ups explained, but they still couldn't convince the heroes. After all, Saitama's experience was too shallow. They immediately turned their attention to Tatsumaki, since given her personality, she should naturally be the first to speak. But Tatsumaki, uninterested, propped her head up with her hand. Having received advance warning from Byakuya the day before, she had no objection to Saitama being the leader. Byakuya calmly remarked, if anyone has any objections, they're welcome to come up and fight Saitama. It doesn't matter if they get injured, one of him is enough for this monster extermination. This guy. In an instant, Byakuya's words ignited the emotions of the crowd. Since rising to S-class, each of them possessed the strength to dominate a region, talents that might not even be found in a single city. Naturally, none of them felt they would be subordinate to anyone else. Looking at the bald man standing there, seemingly lost in thought, the competitive spirit of the heroes present surged forth. Saitama, however, remained uninterested. Aside from his initial surprise, he showed no reaction, only saying helplessly to Byakuya, hey, don't draw my aggro, isn't this the fastest way? You were supposed to be the main force in this expedition anyway. These people won't be convinced unless you step in. If we keep dragging this out, we might not even finish the monster's lair by tomorrow morning. It's better to defeat them all than waste time, Byakuya said, shrugging. Alright, Saitama thought it made sense and turned his head, saying, then bring it on. Who wants to go first? I'll go first, Atomic Samurai said, a thin toothpick dangling from his mouth, appearing behind Saitama without him noticing, his right hand gripping his katana tightly. Watch out, One Punch Man, Atomic Samurai warned, the katana already drawn from its sheath, swinging with all his might towards Saitama's forehead. The specially designed katana moved at speeds far exceeding the speed of sound, leaving tens of thousands of ultra-thin cuts, each 0.01 millimeters thick, on Saitama's skin in the blink of an eye. But before his blade was even halfway drawn from its sheath, Saitama's right hand had already pressed down on the hilt, gently pushing the katana back with a clang. This is impossible. Atomic Samurai stared speechlessly at the red-gloved right hand pressing down on his scabbard. The difference in skill was astonishing. Is it ready? Saitama smiled kindly and released his hand. I can see defeat, Atomic Samurai sighed, never expecting that his lifelong practice of the draw-slash technique would be forcibly suppressed. Meanwhile, Bai Ye stared wide-eyed, unblinking. If there were a progress bar in his mind, it would probably read, you have learned the technique, Atomic/32%. Tisk, he suppressed it before even making a move. I only saw a little bit clearly, Bai Ye thought with some annoyance. The heroes present were also stunned by this scene. Everything happened too fast, many of them hadn't even noticed Atomic Samurai's attack. How could he suddenly admit defeat? Anyone else who's got a problem with this and wants to fight, come on up, Bai Ye urged. I'll go, Super Ally Darkshin shouted. Me too, Child Emperor raised his right hand, enthusiastically volunteering. Me too, Flashy Flash was also intrigued. Then what greeted them was slap, slap, slap. With 3 punches, the 3 S-class heroes who were famous outside were now all squatting to the side, clutching their swollen heads, no longer saying a word. Looking at the bald man calmly withdrawing his fist, the other heroes who hadn't made a move were stunned. Where did this monster come from? Alright, since everyone has no objections, let's head to the Monster Association now, said a high-ranking member of the association, and this suggestion immediately drew a large following. With Sadama's overwhelming power, their confidence soared, and they all boarded a private jet and flew towards Z-City. Underground in Z-City, a fat, maggot-like, humanoid, four-armed, one-eyed monster lay on a soft recliner. This was none other than Gyro, the strategist of the Monster Association. He was listening to reports from the surface, but the information he received left him completely bewildered. You're saying our Monster Association has been exposed, and that King Fuadasan was seriously injured, unable to use his powers? Is that even possible? Our 33 high-ranking monster spies in the Hero Association were wiped out overnight? When did I plant any spies? How come I didn't even know I had spies in the association? Faced with a barrage of reports from the surface, Gyro felt overwhelmed by the sheer number of inconsistencies. How could they know everything while he was secretly plotting to destroy the Hero Association? Where did they get this intelligence? Gyro, who had thought victory was assured, now felt the situation was somewhat unpredictable. Just as he was seriously considering what to do, the entire ground around the association suddenly trembled violently. What's going on? Big Eyes looked around. He remembered that Z-City wasn't located in an earthquake zone, so where did this earthquake come from? Above, on the ground, Sadama slowly withdrew his right fist, looking at the huge hole that had been punched into the ground in the abandoned area where he had lived for 3 years. Everyone on the plane stared wide-eyed at the deep pit below, falling silent. Could a single punch cause such destruction? On the plane, Tornado's green hair fluttered slightly. Following White Knight's instructions, she had used her telekinesis to move Sadama's small house out of the abandoned area beforehand. And she also looked at the cave with slight surprise. Alright, heroes, now that One Punch Man has created this environment for us, let's get ready to fight, the association's high-ranking officials shouted, and then all the heroes prepared for battle. Chapter 211 The chat group's cry for help. Hours later, the no-man's land that occupied a large area of Z-City had been transformed into a devastated battlefield. Rubble from post-war buildings and the corpses of various monsters lay scattered everywhere. As the last black sperm was pulverized by atomic samurai's slash, all the heroes couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. Bang, who had watched the entire battle from the sidelines due to his injuries, remarked, "The Monster Association is truly a terrifying opponent. I can hardly imagine how we could have won this battle head-on without One Punch Man here. Isn't it because you guys kept trying to find monsters that matched your personalities to fight one-on-one that it took so long?" On the plane, Bai Ye, propping his head up, complained. Faced with Bai Ye's reply, the wounded heroes couldn't help but laugh awkwardly. Normally, with Sadama's strength, he could have wiped out the Monster Association without any trouble in at most an hour. But these burdensome heroes insisted on showing off their power, leaving Sadama to hold the line while they went off to fight monsters one-on-one. Facing monsters like Platinum Sperm, whose strength reached the peak of dragon level, most of them were badly beaten, requiring Sadama to intervene. Seeing the bald man, whose battle suit remained undamaged after repeated battles and who could defeat anyone with a single punch, everyone couldn't help but feel a sense of awe. At the same time, they all turned their gaze to Bai Ye. They hadn't forgotten that during the Hero Conference, the bald man, so incredibly powerful yet seemingly uninterested in anything, had actually volunteered to fight Bai Ye. Just how strong was Bai Ye? "Now that it's all over, the cleanup is up to you," Bai Ye said from the side. With Sadama there, he didn't need to lift a finger, he simply watched the entire process, his job being to wipe out the Monster Association. With the battle over, everything returned to normal for the next month. Aside from the occasional demon-level monster being defeated, Bai Ye's life entered a period of calm. He spent most of his days eating, sleeping, and riding tornadoes. Judging by the time, it wouldn't take more than a few days to return to the main god space and finish this mission. But just as Bai Ye's daily life was getting back on track, a problem arose in the chat group. Citizen of Sin City, at Deep Blue, please help me. Deep Blue, what happened where you are? In the dead of night in downtown Gotham City, Gavin knelt on the ground, his face filled with despair as he stared at the burning villa district before him. His family and children were inside, but they had all been reduced to ashes by a fire. Behind him, Batman, clad in black armor, watched the scene silently. He knew a little about the culprit behind the fire. It was probably the Penguin. Over the past month, Gavin's heroic activities had begun to affect the interests of the underworld, and naturally, Many people wanted to kill him. Gavin's identity wasn't difficult to find out. Anyone with sufficient intelligence could find out that a wealthy man had recently become rich in the city center. Everything that followed was predictable. Faced with a Gotham City underworld's surprise attack, Gavin, arriving too late, could only watch helplessly as the explosion occurred. In the chat group, after Bai Ye spoke, Gavin, as if grasping at a straw, succinctly shared his current situation, leaving the other group members stunned. Had he gone too far in playing the role of a righteous hero? Deep Blue, how do you want me to help you? Help you get revenge? Faced with Bai Ye's question, Gavin hesitated for a long time before saying, I can take revenge myself with my own strength, but I want you to resurrect my family. Can you do that? I'm willing to give everything. Deep Blue, no time. Anyway, you're still alive. I have some things to take care of right now. Let's consider it in a few days when I have more free time. How could this be? Rejected by Bai Ye, Gavin felt a little devastated. The previously generous senior Deep Blue was now so cold, but Stark, observing from the sidelines, knew very well that this was Bai Ye's core principle: a friend's friend is not his friend. Not to mention, Gavin had been in the chat group for over a month, and hadn't been very active in speaking up, not even having become familiar with the big shot. He never bothers with his own affairs, yet now he expects Bai Ye to step in when trouble comes. Where does he get the nerve? Standing before the ruins of the villa, Gavin fell into a long silence. After a long while, he slowly rose, collected the remains, and turned to walk into the night. Where do you want to go? Batman asked Gavin from behind. Revenge. Don't stop me. Whoever gets in my way will die, Gavin said without turning his head, his anger hidden in his words, as he faced the moonlight. Watching Gavin's back, Batman hesitated, considering whether to stop him. His principles prevented him from watching Gavin continue killing, but getting Gavin, who was currently blinded by rage, to stop the group of criminals was extremely difficult. In the One Punch Man world, Bai Ye closed the chat group, putting the matter aside for now, planning to spend the last few days of this mission before considering his departure. After all, he had come here at the invitation of Uchiha Sasuke, and Sasuke was still in the Naruto world. If he suddenly left midway, and then traveled through time again via Sasuke, he would most likely still end up in the Naruto world, and the coordinates of One Punch Man and the main god space would be gone. Therefore, he planned to bring Sasuke to the main god space after this mission to complete a mission as well, letting him act as a beacon between these two worlds. Life is truly as lonely as snow, Bai Ye sighed, watching the rising steam from the teacup in front of him. What are you sighing about for no reason? Tatsumaki asked, sitting opposite him with her arms crossed. Nothing, just thinking about what to eat later, Bai Ye replied, gently fanning himself with a fan. This guy, Tornado muttered to herself, then said inexplicably, Hey, Bai, you said you'd be leaving in 2 months, which means you only have a few days left. That's right, I've calculated it. There are about 10 days left before I leave. Bai looked at the countdown in his mind, then teased, what's wrong? Is it because of these intimate moments that your body has already taken on my shape, and you don't want me to leave? How could that be? I can't wait for you to leave so you won't bother me anymore, Tornado said, her face flushed, but in the end, she gently turned her head away. HMPH, but seeing how pitiful you are all alone, if you beg me, I might not be so heartless. All alone? Not really, after all. I have women in other worlds too, and who else do you have besides me? Tornado stared intently at Bai, her hands unconsciously clenching the hem of her skirt. Anyone else? Let me count. If we include those who serve me in bed, there are 1, 2, 3, 13, 14, 15. Bai Ye counted them one by one, but before he could finish, the tornado in front of him had already turned ashen-faced. The next moment, seeing Bai Ye listing them off so familiarly, a faint green light from the activation of her psychic power shone from the tornado's fair skin, surging forth with a wave of her hand, engulfing the area where Bai Ye stood. Scum, die? Chapter 212 Show me how to kill someone. Warning. Warning. A monster has appeared in the XX building, X Street, X District, Z City. Its predicted strength is Tiger level or higher. It is not recommended for C-class or B-class hero teams with fewer than 5 members to go there. As the monster threat alarm sounded, inside a building in Z City, a fan-shaped structure that appeared to be entirely made of machinery was surrounded by several B-class heroes. Hasn't Miss Fubuki arrived yet? She might be a little late. We'll have to rely on her. She's just a mere tiger-level monster that can manipulate wind. Watch my Fubuki team take her down." The B-class heroes looked at the fan-shaped monster with great enthusiasm, but a moment later, a terrifying gust of wind erupted from the fan-shaped structure. A powerful hurricane swept through, slamming all the heroes against a load-bearing wall behind them, preventing them from falling. Wow, this power is definitely at the demon level. Damn it, everyone hold on, we can only wait for Fubuki to fight it. Damn it, my body is being blown around by the wind pressure and I can't move. In front of the demon-level monster Fan-Demon, these B-class heroes had no ability to resist at all, and could only let it ravage them in a moment. But in an instant, a blur flashed by, rushing towards Fan-Demon, his body showing no signs of slowing down as it passed through the hurricane. Boom! With a loud bang, Bai Ye slowly withdrew his right fist. The Fan-Demon in front of him had been blasted to dust by him. Yes, the nemesis of S-Class 3, looking at the monster fragments flying everywhere in front of them, and the back of the figure with long hair swaying in the wind, these people immediately recognized the identity of the person who came. Seeing that another demon-level monster had been added to his death list, Bai Ye nodded in satisfaction, and then turned and left. On the other side, a girl with a curvaceous figure, wearing a close-fitting fur coat, flew towards this place with the support of her telekinesis. "Ah, it's Miss Fubuki, too bad you're a bit late," a subordinate said regretfully. But Fubuki ignored them, quickly catching up with Bai Ye who was about to leave and calling out, "Hey, wait a minute." Bai Ye paused, turning back to look at Fubuki with a puzzled expression. He shouldn't have any connection with her. His underlings behind her immediately panicked. "Big sister, this is an S-class hero, not like the newbies we used to bully. What's your relationship with my sister?" Fubuki's gaze was fixed on Bai Ye, demanding an answer. "Your sister?" Faced with Fubuki's question, Bai Ye's mind went into a frenzy of thought, trying to figure out his relationship with Tatsumaki. Recalling their time together, all he could think about was, crack 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 crack, from the balcony, the suburbs, inside the car, the rooftop, all the way to the rooftop, the elevator, the entryway, the bathroom, the office. Reflecting on every detail of his acquaintance with Tornado, he was shocked to find that all he could recall were these disturbing memories. Damn it, isn't there anything more heartwarming, something even a child could watch? Bai Ye pondered, finally concluding. No. So how could he honestly answer Hellish Blizzard's question? After a long silence, Bai Ye finally looked up and met Hellish Blizzard's gaze directly. "Your sister and I are physical business partners." Business partners? Just business partners? Then how come you're always together in the news? Hellish Blizzard simply didn't believe it. She remembered the sound of her sister and Bai Ye running when she called her sister late that night. Given her sister's personality, if they were just business partners or acquaintances, how could they possibly be running together at night? Therefore, she could reasonably assume that the person in front of her had a secret relationship with her sister. "Of course, my cooperation with your sister is very deep, and we're both S-class heroes, so it's reasonable for us to exchange ideas often. You, a B-class hero, don't need to worry about it," Bai Ye said calmly. Although the other party was being cheeky, he still remembered his deal with Tatsumaki. "What are you doing?" Just as Bai Ye and Fubuki were facing off, a suppressed angry voice came from afar. Fubuki turned around and saw her sister rushing towards them from a distance. "Sister?" Fubuki asked, puzzled, not understanding why he was so angry. Tatsumaki glared angrily at Bai Ye, and although she didn't say anything, Bai Ye could guess what she wanted to say. "It was just an accidental encounter, and I was about to leave when she came knocking first," Bai Ye said, pointing directly at the astonished Fubuki. Hearing this, Tatsumaki's expression froze, and she looked at Fubuki with a complicated gaze, like seeing a plucked sheep willingly running into a pack of wolves. She had been forced to eat and drink excessively for her sake, and yet this girl was actually trying to approach Bai Ye? "I just wanted to know what your relationship with him is," Fubuki explained. "What my relationship with him is none of your business," Tatsumaki said, looking down at Fubuki with her usual haughty expression, wanting only for Byakuya to leave quickly. But this attitude unsurprisingly provoked Fubuki's immediate rebellion. Before she could react, she saw her haughty older sister awkwardly whispering something in Byakuya's ear, and Byakuya's eyes lit up slightly after hearing it, then he nodded sharply. "This is between you sisters, I won't disturb you any longer," Byakuya said with a wave of his hand, then pulled a few of the Fubuki group members away from the scene. Once everyone around had completely disappeared, Tatsumiki's expression turned icy cold as she turned her gaze to Fubuki. I don't care what your intentions are, you are absolutely forbidden from associating with Byakuya from now on. Fubuki questioned, why? Why can you but I can't? You have no idea who he is. Faced with a question, Tatsumiki was momentarily speechless, caught up in the silence she had felt with Byakuya earlier, unsure how to describe the complex relationship between them. Just as Tatsumiki was pondering how to describe Byakuya's ruthlessness to Fubuki, Byakuya encountered a burly young man with a goat's head on the road. You're the nemesis, aren't you? Garu glared fiercely at the man before him. Although encountering the nemesis of S-Class rank 3 so early is a bit unexpected, I can't let it go so easily now that I've met it. Garu blocked Bai Ye's path, a smirk playing on his lips. I am Garu, the most ferocious and evil monster of the future. After I defeat you, the entire Hero Association will know of my existence. What a mongrel. Bai Ye looked at the guy blocking his way, bored. You say you're a monster, kill someone and show me. What did you say? Garu was completely dumbfounded, staring at Bai Ye. This guy is a hero, right? Chapter 213 The Malice of the White Knight. I said, if you're a weirdo, then kill someone for me to see. Bai Ye looked at the hungry wolf in front of him with disdain. You haven't even killed anyone, have you? If some weirdo claims to be the fiercest and most vicious, but has never killed anyone, wouldn't that be like a comedy sketch where they force themselves to wrap dumplings at the end? That would be too ridiculous. You? The hungry wolf was speechless for a moment, looking at the expressionless Bai Ye and questioning, you're clearly a hero, yet you keep talking about killing people. Humph. So all heroes are like you, seeking fame and fortune. Why bother with all this nonsense? To put it bluntly, you're just a self-proclaimed weirdo who doesn't even dare to kill anyone. Any wanted criminal in the association is more ruthless than you. Bai Ye looked at the hungry wolf as if he were observing a clown. Huh? How could those wanted trash compare to me? Before meeting you, I had already defeated dozens of martial artists and 7 or 8 heroes, the hungry wolf said smugly. Faced with his smugness, Bai Ye suddenly asked, okay, what about yesterday? Garu was taken aback. What are you talking about? I said your numbers barely met today. How many did you take down yesterday? That's not all you've got, is it? Bai Ye asked. What is this guy talking about? Garu instinctively widened his eyes, staring at the man in front of him. What he didn't know was that the man in front of him had just destroyed a planet a month ago. Even disregarding that achievement, the combined numbers of the Afghan terrorist organization, Nick Fury, and Stryker alone meant that the number of people who died at Bai Ye's hands exceeded 10,000, and countless others died because of him. Therefore, Garu's claim of being the most ferocious and evil monster, yet defeating heroes without killing them, was, in Bai Ye's eyes, as utterly absurd as a kindergarten child claiming to rule a planet. In fact, the number of heroes Garu boasted about defeating was less than the number of women Bai Ye had slept with. So you want to be a weirdo? Then kill someone first and show me. You don't even dare to kill, yet you call yourself a bad guy. Bai Ye looked at him like he was an idiot. These self-deceiving guys who were lost in their own world were the most ridiculous, lacking even the most basic self-awareness. What a joke. Why wouldn't I dare to kill? I can do it if I want to. Hungry Wolf was about to say something when a man in prison clothes, unconscious, was right in front of him. Hey, the person's right here, hurry up and do it. Bai Ye, who had just returned from a nearby prison, grabbed the prisoner by the neck and said calmly. Cold sweat instinctively trickled down Hungry Wolf's forehead. What was wrong with this guy? He talked about killing as casually as eating and drinking. This criminal has 3 lives on his hands, much more wicked than you, who calls yourself a weirdo. You don't even dare to do it? Are you a coward? Bai Ye asked, lifting the prisoner. Ran into a madman? Trying to be a hero has really taken its toll on your mental health, Garu said to Bai Ye, feigning composure, then turned away with his hands in his pockets, saying, I don't bother with mentally ill people. You blocked my way, and now you're backing down. Bai Ye looked at Garu calmly, then smiled, then I'll help you out. The next moment, with a sound like a watermelon bursting in summer, Bai Ye slowly withdrew his right hand, revealing Garu, his entire body soaked in blood. How is that? A little more awake now? I've helped you take a big step forward on your path to becoming a monster, haven't I? Say thank you. Bai Ye laughed maliciously. What have you done? Garu trembled, inhaling the stench of blood constantly flooding his nostrils from his vest, skin, and fur, almost vomiting. Then he actually vomited against the wall. What a pathetic sight. Just like those old-fashioned web novel protagonists, he vomits after killing someone. So pathetic. Bai Ye scrutinized Hungry Wolf's ugly state. The next moment, Hungry Wolf's palm pierced through his eye. Smack! Bai Ye gently pinched the scarlet arm, twisting it into a pretzel with a slight force. Amidst Hungry Wolf's scream, he flung him against the wall beside him, creating a huge crater. After studying kung fu for so many years, you tremble at the mere sight of someone dying. Your hands are unsteady, and your heart is impure. What do you have to fight me with? Bai Ye said coldly, stomping hard on Hungry Wolf's face. I hate self-deceiving guys like you the most. I've been puzzled by this while reading the comics. Why is it that after reading the whole thing, and fighting for so long, not a single hero has died? How did you become a villain? Hey, I feel like I'm more of a monster than you. Tell me, compared to you, am I a monster? Bai Ye said coldly. The entire Monster Association extermination in the manga was the same. The process was described as incredibly difficult, but in the end, not a single B-class hero was lost at the end of the season. You bastard, you don't deserve to be a hero at all, Garu roared from beneath Bai Ye's feet. Yet, I'm just a hero for fun. I can stop whenever I want, but what do you have left without your self-proclaimed monster title? Bai Ye said calmly, then stomped harder on Garu's head, forcing his face into the mud. Hey, Bai Ye? What are you doing here? At this moment, a slightly dazed voice rang out. Saitama looked at Bai Ye stomping on the blood-soaked Garu and asked in confusion. With Saitama's arrival, Garu recognized the guy in front of him as the second-ranked S-class hero, One Punch Man, ranked even higher than the Nemesis. Seeing Saitama, Garu struggled to his feet from the mud, wanting to tell Saitama about Bai Ye's actions and expose his evil deeds. But before he could even lift his head halfway, Bai Ye stomped it hard into the ground. It's Saitama, isn't it? This guy's the hero hunter, the association's wanted criminal. Several heroes have already been injured and hospitalized by him. Just now, he was running rampant in the street and smashed an innocent passerby who had just been released from prison. Look at the blood on him, he deserved to die. Bai Ye pointed at Garu. Is that so? Saitama stared at Garu, soaked in blood in the mud, and nodded. Oh, then you deal with him. I'm leaving. Hey. Wait, that's not it. This guy is the devil. Garu struggled desperately in the mud, but under Bai Ye's oppression, he couldn't even utter a sound. What's wrong? Didn't you say you wanted to be a monster? You actually want to ask heroes for help? This hypocritical behavior almost made me want to vomit. Since you've chosen to be a monster, then you have no human rights. Above him, Bai Ye's mocking words plunged Garu into an icy abyss, making him experience the evil of humanity for the first time. He realized that compared to Bai Ye, his previous behavior seemed childish and laughable, like that of a school dropout. This guy in front of him was a million times more terrifying than any monster. In an instant, Garu felt utterly hopeless and began to think, because he realized that his so-called evil was nothing compared to Bai Ye's. Chapter 214. Even Fubuki is eating the forbidden fruit? After giving the Hungry Wolf a little attention and conveniently locking him up in jail, Bai Ye returned to his cabin in a cheerful mood. Inside the villa, Tatsumaki was already waiting. However, her expression was off, revealing a hint of tension, but she still tried to appear calm, saying, "Why are you back so late? Just wasting a little time teaching a clueless guy a lesson." Bai Ye's face showed a playful smile. "You promised me before that as long as I left first, leaving you and your sister alone, you could do whatever you wanted with me when I got back. You won't go back on your word, will you?" I know. Tatsumaki gave a haughty snort. It was nothing, she'd been through it before, she was already very familiar with it, and even looked forward to it. Something's definitely fishy. A street away from the villa, Fubuki crossed her arms, silently using her psychic powers to sense what was happening inside. Unlike her sister's focus on developing the strength of her nen abilities, hellish Fubuki had taken a different path. After realizing that her strength could never match her sister's, she only wanted to find another way, developing into a versatile fighter. In this way, while her individual abilities might not be strong, she could be a versatile leader, forming a powerful team to surpass her sister and prove herself. Through her psychic development, she could use her nen abilities to restore her sister's strength and injuries, or rather, use her mental power to achieve her current shared senses. Perhaps because they were sisters, and both possessed nen abilities, she unexpectedly discovered during her development that she could choose to achieve a one-way connection of all 5 senses with her sister within a certain distance. That is, she could sense Tatsumaki's touch, taste, pain, smell, and sight. Because this ability could only be used on Tatsumaki, Fubuki didn't understand its purpose and hadn't used it. But now, to understand her sister's relationship with that man, she immediately thought of this long-dormant special ability. Sure enough, after secretly following her sister back to the other woman's rented apartment and activating the 5 senses connection, she saw the man smiling maliciously through Tatsumaki's eyes. HMPH, you actually followed me to my sister's house. Just as I suspected, your relationship isn't simple. You two think you can fool me so easily? Fubuki laughed smugly. Hey, you're going to fight One Punch Man in a few days. Is it really okay to be thinking about this now? What if you fail because of carelessness? Tornado asked from inside the room. The second and third ranked S-class fighters are going to duel in a few days. Outside the street, Fubuki's eyes lit up. She actually stumbled upon such a bombshell. Whatever. For me, as long as I exercise, it's special training to get stronger. Besides, if I really get killed by Saitama, it's reasonable to perk myself up now, right? Byakuya shrugged. They actually know the secret to getting stronger from their nemesis, just exercise to get stronger? What kind of brainless setting is this from a third-rate novel? And perk myself up? Why does that word sound so familiar? Outside the street, Fubuki felt like she'd heard that word before. Before Fubuki could even grasp the meaning of the word, before Tatsumaki's eyes, Byakuya's clothes suddenly burst open, drawing a burst of holy light. This scene nearly drove the inexperienced Fubuki mad. I'm not pure anymore. What's wrong with this man? Hellish Fubuki immediately covered her eyes, trying to shut them off. But at this moment, she and Tatsumaki weren't already in sync, so even though she closed her eyes, Tatsumaki's eyes were fixed on the strange arm in front of her within the villa. Tatsumaki's observation was so meticulous that Fubuki had to clearly remember every detail of the dragon head sculpture, especially the fact that she felt Tatsumaki unconsciously swallowing saliva. What's going on? Has my sister's relationship with her nemesis progressed to this stage? The sculpture is so big, sister. No, I have to turn off the sync with my 5 senses. Fubuki, after much agonizing thought, felt a pink blush spreading across her body. In her excitement, the once cool room suddenly became hot, causing her to involuntarily become wet. But before this, Byakuya, completely unaware, had already challenged Tatsumaki to a battle. The next moment, in the empty room, Fubuki screamed and collapsed to the ground. Soon, her clothes were soaked with sweat. How could this be? Is this what my sister feels like? Fubuki felt a burning sensation all over her body. Her senses were still connected, and she could only watch helplessly as Tatsumaki acted. Only now did she realize that the seemingly composed Tatsumaki was actually being manipulated by her nemesis. She wanted to disconnect, but wave after wave of terrifying sensations eroding her nerves made it impossible for her to concentrate, and she could only slowly succumb to her passive state. Desperate, she could only use stalling tactics, determined to fight Tatsumaki and Byakuya to the death. Damn it! If I had just held on, those two bastards could have held on for 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Why? It's been 70 minutes already, why isn't it over yet? Is this the fighting power of an S-class hero? Fubuki, now completely limp in the room, was utterly devastated. Her will was on the verge of collapse, her leather jacket soaked with sticky, glistening sweat. But the battle between the two S-class powerhouses, Byakuya and Tatsumaki, continued. The night passed, and as the next day's sunlight streamed into the solitary room, the battle in the distant room finally ceased. At this point, completely dehydrated, Fubuki could only manage a silly, chuckling laugh. Her reason was almost gone, her muscles, weakened by prolonged tension and dehydration, were utterly powerless. She used her remaining mental strength to disconnect. 8 hours, they fought for a full 8 hours, Fubuki's eyes were vacant, her eyeballs rolled back, and she lay sprawled on the ground, muttering to herself. It would probably take several hours for her to recover. Even if her body recovers, after this night's transformation, some things will likely be forever imprinted in her mind, never to be forgotten. For example, the fact that certain things can be eaten, or played musical instruments. Meanwhile, Tornado and Bai Ye are unaware that their sister has already mentally indulged in forbidden fruit. After resting for a while, Bai Ye received a call from the association. Blast, the top-ranked S-class warrior, had been successfully contacted. Oh, so smoothly, Bai Ye nodded in satisfaction. With Blast's teleportation ability, he could finally relax and have a small sparring session with Saitama. Chapter 215 Scroll King Bai Ye. A short-haired, capable man in a black and white combat suit gazed into the distance. Behind him stood the association's staff, who stood respectfully. Suddenly, he sensed something and turned his head slightly. In the distance, a figure was flying rapidly towards him, covering most of the city in the blink of an eye, and pausing briefly before him. "You're the Nemesis? I heard you were looking for me." Blast curiously examined a handsome young man with waist-length black hair that fluttered in the wind. Bai Ye nodded slightly and, without any pleasantries, said directly, "That's right. In about 9 days, I need you to use your teleportation ability to do something." "What is it?" Blast asked. At the same time, Blast was also surprised. He rarely used his ability in public, so how did the other party know he had the teleportation ability? "Teleport me and the second-ranked One-Punch Man into space, as far as possible, and then teleport us back," Bai Ye said bluntly. "Why? I need to have a small spar with him. Earth is too fragile right now. If we get serious, we could destroy it in less than a second," Bai Ye calmly and honestly explained, but Blast didn't believe him at all. He hadn't seen One-Punch Man's strength before, so that was one thing. But based on his brief observation of the boy in front of him, he judged that this boy's strength was definitely not enough to destroy Earth. It would even take some time to destroy humanity on the surface. This was definitely just the boy talking big. But even so, he didn't show it on his face. Instead, he smiled and nodded with the tolerance one would show to a junior, saying, "No problem. If this is what you want, I can agree." The reason he agreed was that, based on his assessment of Bai Ye's strength, if he went all out, a single battle would be too much for the area of a city to withstand. Even if Bai Ye was on the other side of this planet, the damage caused by the battle might slightly affect the planet's magnetic field. Moving to another planet would reduce some of the risks. Blast's smile made Bai Ye a little uncomfortable, but he didn't feel the need to explain it to him. So he simply emphasized, "Remember not to be late, I don't have much time left." "Not much time left." Blast sized up the boy in front of him. Was this guy about to die? But without wasting words with Blast, after expressing his needs, Bai Ye turned and left, disappearing from Blast's sight. A short while later, a voice sounded from behind Blast. "You're Blast? The number 1's rank, I finally met you." Blast turned around and saw a Ronin-like man with a toothpick in his mouth and a katana in his right hand, curiously sizing him up beside the staff. He didn't recognize the person in front of him, but still answered, "I was just contacted by the Hero Association. They asked me to help teleport Kokoro and One-Punch Man to outer space to create a battleground for them." "What?" "The battle between Kokoro and One-Punch Man is taking place in outer space." Atomic Samurai was incredibly disappointed. "A battle between two masters. I was hoping to watch, but it seems I won't have the chance." "Watch?" Blast paused, then smiled. "No problem. I'll take you with me." "Eh, really? That's outer space. Although I don't understand physics, I know how dangerous the universe is." Atomic Samurai couldn't help but ask. After all, he wasn't like Saitama or Bai Ye, monsters who, despite being able to easily unleash attacks at tens or even hundreds of times the speed of sound, still lacked the ability to survive in outer space. Don't worry, I guarantee you'll be fine," Blast said confidently. In his view, it was just a sparring match between two heroes. Watching was definitely no problem. "Oh, that's great. As expected of Mr. Blast, the number 1 S-class hero, you're amazing. Can I bring a few more people with me?" Atomic Samurai asked somewhat shyly. No problem, bring as many as you want," Blast, flattered, agreed without thinking. Meanwhile, after leaving, Bai Ye continued his usual routine of traveling to various cities to find monsters to eliminate. After all, each monster he defeated earned him reward points, which was essentially a way to complete missions. His involvement over the past 2 months had caused considerable hardship for the other heroes. Although Bai Ye was genuinely interested in scoring points and had wasted a lot of time and energy on Tatsumaki, he still single-handedly resolved the vast majority of disasters. According to the association's statistics, Bai Ye had handled over 50% of the disasters, including over 90% of the demon-level disasters he single-handedly defeated. Deep Sea King, meteorites capable of destroying cities, Vaccine Man, the House of Evolution, all of these were either killed or recruited during these 2 months. The monsters were basically hunted down and killed by Bai Ye the moment they showed themselves. Those reincarnators who had chosen the monster camp trembled in fear at the sight, too afraid to even show their faces. But choosing the monster camp was considered lucky. Those who were on Bai Ye's side were truly doomed. None of them, regardless of gender, survived. Compared to those who chose the hero camp but were all wiped out by Bai Ye, living in constant fear was a privilege in itself. This high efficiency directly squeezed the living space of other heroes. After all, completed missions were linked to money, and while the profit from a single disaster had increased tenfold, the total amount earned this month wasn't much more than before. These heroes' complaints reached Bai Ye's ears, making him realize that things had gone a bit too far. Now, a rumor was circulating online that Bai Ye was all that was needed among the heroes, the others were just wasting their time and could be dismissed. This description of Bai Ye as a public servant annoyed him. Did these self-important ordinary people really think he was serving the people? Therefore, after some thought, he decided to delegate missions below the demon level to other heroes, thus suppressing his own mission completion rate. Meanwhile, a rumor was spreading like wildfire. A battle between the Nemesis and One Punch Man would take place in a few days to determine the strongest. And the battlefield would be teleported into outer space by Blast, the number 1 S-class hero. This news quickly attracted great attention. Such a battle between unparalleled powerhouses made countless martial artists eager to witness it. So, 9 days later, Blast pointed to the crowd that had almost filled the entire street and said speechlessly to Atomic Samurai, "Is this what you called a few people?" Chapter 216 An Enemy from Outer Space. Ahem, yeah, just a few people, Atomic Samurai said somewhat embarrassedly. He hadn't expected so many people to come, and he'd been overwhelmed by this whole affair these past few days. Initially, he'd only told his disciples, Ian and a few others, that he wanted them to witness a battle between powerful individuals. After all, observing a fight between strong fighters would greatly benefit their future. But these good-for-nothings started chatting with other heroes and accidentally let it slip, and now the whole world knew. Then, S-class heroes like Bang, Child Emperor, and Tank Top Master came knocking, all wanting to provoke him, which he couldn't refuse. Next, his fellow members of the Sword Saint Guild also wanted to witness a battle between masters. These swordsmen were so devoted they'd die for their art. He couldn't possibly refuse them. Then came A-class heroes, association leaders, tycoons. Gradually, the crowd grew to almost fill an entire street. Practically everyone of note on the planet came running. If something goes wrong and everyone here dies, the whole world will be in chaos, not just economically, but also with a severe shortage of upper-level combat power. Can you do it? Atomic Samurai asked nervously, his back to the people on the street behind him. Stared at by thousands of people, Blast could only force a straight face and say, "Of course, no problem. Let alone a street, I can teleport an entire city to outer space." After saying that, Blast immediately realized and said, "Hey, that's enough people. Don't add any more, okay?" Atomic Samurai nodded obediently. But Blast sensed a hint of disappointment in the other's words. If he hadn't refused, was this guy really planning to bring an entire city? On the other side, Bai Ye looked at Tatsumaki and the woman standing next to her with surprise. "Why did you bring your sister along?" Bai Ye asked, pointing at Hellish Blizzard. In the past few days, he had heard Tatsumaki say that Hellish Blizzard had suddenly shown signs of a mental breakdown and had been hospitalized. This caused Tatsumaki, who should have been spending every day with Byakuya, to spend several days visiting her sister in the hospital. However, when Tatsumaki asked about the reason for Byakuya's mental abnormality, she refused to say anything. And now, she's suddenly been discharged. "This guy heard about your fight with One Punch Man, and for some reason wanted to come and see," Tatsumaki said. While Tatsumaki spoke, Hellish Blizzard looked at him with the same disdainful gaze she'd given Silver Beast, occasionally rubbing against him slightly, barely daring to engage in direct conversation with Byakuya. This made Byakuya wonder, had he done anything to her? Or had she found out about his deal with Tatsumaki? This is a duel. You guys shouldn't think it's easy. You actually want to watch from outer space. Byakuya covered his head, speechless. And Blast might not even agree. I just want to see you fail, Tatsumaki said, her tsundere side kicking in. This battle should only be very short, so watching isn't very meaningful. Byakuya wanted to say something, but Tatsumaki's eyes showed her determination. Alright, whatever you want. I'll ask Blast later, Bai Ye said nonchalantly. But when Bai Ye arrived in City A with the two girls, he was speechless at the sheer number of people. You mean these guys are here to watch the fight? Bai Ye pointed at the crowd on the street. It's okay, I'll protect them, Blast said confidently, patting his chest. Ah. Everyone's here. Saitama arrived from City Z, and was momentarily stunned by the sea of people before him, but quickly looked at Bai Ye and said, let's begin the battle. Wait. Something big happened at the association. Just then, an association administrator who was still on duty rushed in and said, Grandma Babal just died after her prophecy. She predicted a crisis that would destroy the earth. What? Grandma Babal is dead. The scene immediately erupted in commotion. They had all heard of Shababal's name. Her prophecies had never been wrong. Bai Ye, however, seemed thoughtful. Could this prophecy be for the last episode of the first season? With this question in mind, he looked up and saw an enormous purple ship hurtling towards Earth from outside the atmosphere, soon to reach the surface. This is ridiculous, Bai Ye muttered, a crimson bottle appearing in his hand with a flick of his wrist. This is that thing from when we first met. Tornado stared at the pin particles, her memory vivid. If it weren't for this, she wouldn't have lost to Bai Ye in battle. I'll need it later anyway, might as well use it now, Bai Ye said casually. In an instant, to the astonishment of those around him, his body swelled inch by inch, growing to a towering height of over 10 meters. This state is much more comfortable, Bai Ye said contentedly, feeling the power of his expanding body. Tornado, however, thought of the 1.8 meter tall Bai Ye, her face flushing red. Name, Bai Ye. Lifespan 19. Strength 6,180. Constitution 6,180. Spirit 6,180. Charisma 1.4 plus. The next moment, Bai Ye slightly pushed off with his legs, and to ordinary people, his figure seemed to teleport away from his original spot. Wait, this speed? Blast's eyes widened. His speed had increased more than 100-fold simply from the increase in his size. Turning to look at the many people behind him, remembering his promise to protect them, Blast's heart immediately pounded with fear. Had he really gone too far? Natives of this planet, I'm here to rule you. In outer space, on a space pirate ship, a tall alien life form roared. But looking at the blue planet that was about to arrive, in an instant, Bai Ye's right knee slammed into the center of the ship's base, tens of kilometers below. In the vast, silent universe, the space pirate ship's chassis, capable of withstanding countless meteor showers, couldn't withstand even a moment's impact and shattered instantly. A massive chasm, tens of kilometers wide, appeared on the spaceship, then forcefully snapped it in two. In the impact, the entire ship experienced an unprecedentedly massive shock and explosion in the following second. 3 seconds later, 80% of the crew perished in the explosion, while Bai Ye had already stormed into the main hall. There, a blue-skinned alien clad in armor looked at him with excited eyes. So you're the prophesied enemy, but he wasn't met with words. Bai Ye's elbow had already slammed into Borwas's face. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 217. Poor White Knight. What happened? Why did the Nemesis suddenly leave? At the entrance of the association, a large crowd stared in confusion at the vanished Bai Ye. Genos's mechanical pupils, Saitama, and Blast all looked up at the sky. Child Emperor, looking thoughtful, took out a camera and pointed it at the azure sky. After adjusting and zooming in, he saw a purple spaceship floating in outer space. In the lens, the spaceship looked like a model that had been broken in half by a mischievous child. Behind Child Emperor, Metalbat looked surprised. It's an alien invader. I didn't expect Granny Shababal's prophecy to come true so quickly. I wonder if the Nemesis can hold off the aliens alone. Child Emperor was somewhat worried. At this moment, Inside the space pirate cruise ship, Aura, Boros roared, his fists flying, stirring the air, and he punched Bai Ye's body at hundreds of times the speed of sound. In an instant, a dense barrage of fist shadows appeared, impenetrable even to the thickest needles. The overwhelming fist shadows enveloped the 18-meter-tall Bai Ye in a flash. Each punch was like a nuclear explosion, capable of reducing everything in several streets to dust, as if a million nuclear bombs were detonating simultaneously at one point. If they weren't inside the spaceship, a large city would have been annihilated in a single second. But Bai Ye remained calm, not even raising a finger, his waist-length hair whipping wildly across his back. Ninja art, needle jizzo. In an instant, Bai Ye's 100,000 strands of hair, under his control, became like 100,000 freely waving tentacles, each clashing with the fist shadows. This defensive ninjutsu, originally used to control the length and hardening of hair, unleashed terrifying power on Bai Ye. Boom 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 boom, the collision of his fine, jet black hair with the fists and palms created an effect like a meteorite impact. Each collision generated intense light and heat, like a mythical scene of 10,000 suns soaring into the sky, blindingly filing the entire hall. The temperature inside the hall instantly soared to tens of thousands. Powerful. Mighty. Domineering, that's it, that's how it should be. It wasn't in vain that I spent countless years fighting you. You are the peerless opponent I foretold. Come on, let's fight to our heart's content. Boros's heart surged with excitement. After countless years, he had finally encountered an opponent worthy of his battle. Watching Bai Ye easily repel his attack with just a hair, he unhesitatingly expended a large amount of his internal energy to enter a state of liberation. In an instant, visible energy erupted from his body, causing the entire hall to tremble. Boros's deep purple shell transformed into pinkish white flesh with smooth muscle lines. Dark, lightning-like lines covered his skin, and pinkish white fleshy whiskers, like hair, danced in the wind behind his head, exuding an overwhelming and domineering aura that no one could rival. Energy propulsion, 100%, breakthrough, Boros roared, his muscles reaching 100% under the stimulation of the immense energy. The next moment, Boros assumed a sprinting stance, his right foot slamming into the spaceship. Boom, with a violent tremor, the already broken half of the spaceship beneath his feet was crushed like a hollow soda can. Then, the immense kinetic energy, enough to sink a nation, propelled his body upwards at thousands of times the speed of sound, his right fist aimed straight for Bai Ye's face. This punch will pierce through the stars, Boros roared inwardly, but before his right fist could touch it, Bai Ye's right hand struck him first. Too fast, I can't dodge. I can't dodge. I can't dodge. There's no way I can dodge it, alarm bells rang in Boros's mind. Then he watched helplessly as Bai Ye extended his right fist, slightly bending his index finger, the enormous, jade-like finger striking him directly. Boom, in an instant, Boros's body disintegrated, turning into a shower of blood. Each drop of blood carried immense kinetic energy, enough to collapse his street. This blood-soaked water scattered, riddling the entire spaceship with holes before reforming into a single entity in space. I can't beat him. I can't even beat him, Boros felt a sense of disillusionment. Although he longed for an opponent, the strength before him was overwhelmingly powerful. While he had enjoyed the fight, the unfathomable power of his opponent made him feel like a frog in a well. All the previous battles seemed like an old man playing with children, a game he hadn't taken seriously at all. For a moment, besides the disillusionment, a sense of pity arose in Boros's heart. He felt pity for Bai Ye. He felt pity for Bai Ye, who possessed such immense strength yet had no worthy opponent. As someone who had been invincible for hundreds of years, Boros understood this feeling, the desire to experience defeat but being unable to. In the battle just now, he had already tasted the thrill of combat. Even if he died now, it would be worth it. But his opponent, due to the vast difference in strength, remained trapped in the loneliness of invincibility. So, now, having already achieved the satisfaction of battle, Boros, out of respect, should respond by giving his opponent the same level of enjoyment. Let me use my life to completely satisfy you, Boros roared, sparing no effort as he gathered his energy. A terrifying energy, enough to annihilate all life on a planet in an instant, enveloped Boros. Accept my respect, this attack will definitely make you serious. Collapsing star-roaring cannon, Boros roared, gathering all his energy to its limit, preparing to unleash a fatal blow. In the distance, Bai Ye, seeing this, also became slightly serious. Judging from the energy intensity before him, the next attack should be equivalent to his current full-force punch. I was originally planning to fight Saitama, but you appeared halfway through. I'll kill you first and then fight him, Bai Ye said calmly, his words transmitted to Boros through his power field, then his right fist clenched tightly, ready to strike. But the next moment, to Bai Ye's astonishment, a burst of intense light erupted from Boros's body. The opponent hadn't released the collapsing star roaring cannon, instead, he chose to detonate the energy ball. What's wrong with this guy? Bai Ye was slightly puzzled. Could it be that he chickened out? In outer space, Boros, having deactivated the collapsing star roaring cannon after consuming most of his energy, his muscles shrank dramatically, chased after Bai Ye. What did you just say? You were about to duel an opponent. Besides me, is there anyone else who can make you take it seriously? Boros asked excitedly. Yes, because there's an even stronger opponent waiting for me. Your appearance has seriously affected our battle. Bai Ye said calmly. An opponent stronger than me? Boros's single eye widened instantly. You said there's someone as powerful as you. As powerful? No, he's stronger now, Bai Ye said, preparing to raise his hand and obliterate Boros into dust. Even stronger, Boros became completely excited. Under Bai Ye's silent gaze, Boros bowed his head and pleaded, please let me witness your battle, even if it means killing me afterwards. Chapter 218 The Battle of Jupiter. Whoa! This energy, below, as the collapsing star energy cannon fired, on Earth, the detection device in Child Emperor's hand lit up with a blinding red light. If this energy hit Earth, it would definitely cause the extinction of humanity. This is already a God-level attack, God-level. Upon hearing Child Emperor's words, everyone present gasped, while Blast was already prepared to redirect the attack. But the next moment, the energy exploded, and the enormous light could be clearly observed across the entire hemisphere. What's wrong with this guy, or are there things wrong with the brains of the people in this world? In outer space, Bai Ye looked speechlessly at Boros, whose body had shrunk due to excessive energy depletion. Looking at the large, bright eyes in front of him, filled with excitement, pleading, and longing, Bai Ye suddenly lost the desire to kill him. Gently lowering his hand, Bai Ye nodded and said, never mind, if you want, come along. Thank you very much, Boros said sincerely. Aren't you going to collect the corpses of your men in your spaceship? Bai Ye pointed to the spaceship, now reduced to scrap metal, in the distance. Never mind them, the battle is the most important thing. Let's get going, Boros said without hesitation. As the leader of the space pirate group, all his members were united by mutual benefit, and they weren't even of the same race. He didn't care how many died. Whatever makes you happy. Since the other party didn't care, Bai Ye naturally had no objection. Now that the matter was resolved, he headed down towards City A, and Boros immediately followed closely behind. Below, the crowd that had been waiting anxiously saw Bai Ye return, followed by a gaunt alien. Bai Ye, who is this guy? Tornado asked Boros, emanating a strong sense of threat from him. Bang and the others present also showed wary expressions, feeling immense pressure from the guy in front of them. Compared to their wariness, Boros was full of surprise. It turned out that the people on this planet weren't much bigger than him in terms of size. Bai Ye, this opponent, was the special one. He thought this planet was full of giants tens of meters tall. This guy is the leader of the invaders. I originally wanted to kill him, but when he heard I was going to fight Saitama, he said he wouldn't fight and would come to watch, Bai Ye explained in response to Tornado's question. Hearing Bai Ye's explanation, everyone present was speechless. But then they realized that all the guys on the street were here to watch, and suddenly they understood. Are you the opponent in this final battle? I feel you are very strong. At this moment, Boros had already fixed his gaze on Blast. But Blast immediately shook his head and said, no, it's not me. This time, the opponent is One Punch Man. Following Blast's finger, Boros's gaze fell on the bald Saitama, his expression full of surprise. This guy is Bai Ye's opponent? Hurry up and start the teleportation. At this moment, Bai Ye urged. In his vision, the countdown of the main god had about 10 minutes left before returning, and he couldn't delay any longer. No problem, watch me, Blast nodded. Looking at the thousands of people crowding the street, he couldn't help but sigh, regretting making such a promise. He vowed never to do something so thankless again. The next moment, A powerful gravitational field formed a black sphere that enveloped Blast's fists, followed by a slightly rotating halo. With his superpowers fully activated, a massive black sphere instantly enveloped the entire street of City A. Whoosh, everyone's vision shifted, and they were instantly transported to outer space, surrounded by a brownish-gray planet and massive star rings. Wait, this is Jupiter, Child Emperor exclaimed in surprise, never expecting to arrive here, where even light takes 30 minutes to travel. That's right. Here, no matter how much we fight, no matter how long it lasts, it won't affect Earth, Blast smiled. Under his protection, everyone could temporarily survive and speak in space. But then, he felt a sudden tightness behind him. Turning around, he saw Boros looking at him excitedly, saying, "You're very strong. Let's have a spar later." At that moment, Child Emperor cheered from not far away. "That's fantastic." He held up his camera, saying, "The portable super camera I invented specifically for this battle has finally come in handy." Child Emperor boasted, "This is a super camera that can take 100 billion photos per second. It can even capture light trails." At this moment, Bai Ye stood in front of Child Emperor and said, his tall figure and booming voice, "You haven't forgotten what I asked you to make last time, have you? Don't worry, as long as the timing is accurate, it'll be a piece of cake." Child Emperor smiled confidently and tossed a stopwatch to Bai Ye. Bai Ye gently picked it up, adjusted the time, and soon a countdown of 9:45 appeared on the stopwatch. "Don't worry, the time deviation of this stopwatch is 100 billionth of a second, it will definitely meet your requirements," Child Emperor said. Bai Ye nodded, turning his gaze to Saitama and saying, "Let's go, let's fight on Jupiter, and finish this quickly." "No problem." Saitama's eyes were already brimming with excitement. Just as Bai Ye was about to leave, Tatsumaki suddenly called out, "Bai Ye, what is it?" Bai Ye turned around, puzzled. I order you absolutely not to lose to this bald guy," Tatsumaki said coldly. Bai Ye was stunned for a moment, then nodded and said, "Oh, I'll win." With that, under Bai Ye's biofield, the two of them simultaneously transformed into afterimages and fell towards the massive Jupiter in front of them. Afterwards, everyone's hearts pounded, excited for the battle to come. Child Emperor handed the camera in his hand to the robot to control, then took out a television from his backpack and said, "It's too far away, everyone use this to watch." Everyone immediately crowded forward, only to see that after moving several Earth diameters, the two had already landed on Jupiter and were sitting on the ground without fighting. What's going on? Everyone was completely bewildered by the scene, while the reincarnators from the monster faction hidden among the crowd had some vague guesses. Could Bai Ye not intend to fight this battle, but instead just faint and return to the main god space? Amidst everyone's speculations, on Jupiter, Bai Ye picked up the timer in his hand and tossed it to Saitama, saying, "The battle will begin the moment the countdown reaches 0, to avoid getting too carried away." The battle time, Bai Ye's lips curled slightly, "Let's set it to 0.01 seconds. After the time runs out, I'll be teleported away from this universe for a period of time. When I return next time, I should have completely surpassed you, so you'd better cherish this battle with me." Chapter 219 Give Earth a Chance. 0.01 seconds. A loud commotion erupted from the crowd watching on Jupiter. Even Blast and Boros looked on in astonishment, their gazes fixed on Child Emperor. "Yet, that's what the Nemesis told me before. He's going to have a fight with Saitama that lasts only 0.01 seconds. Child Emperor nodded, his small frame hunched over, recalling the scene of Bai Ye suddenly showing up at his door earlier. "I was surprised when I heard that. He said that in about 9 minutes, he'll be leaving this star system for a while to handle some things on another planet, so before he leaves, he wants to have one last fight with One Punch Man. Because the fight is so short, he specifically asked me to prepare a stopwatch to keep track of the time, otherwise I'd be kept in the dark." Faced with Child Emperor's answer, everyone present was puzzled. Wait, why is he doing this? Why is the time so tight? Blast couldn't understand. "What can you do with 0.01 seconds? Blast's question made Tornado reply somewhat annoyed. "Because he said that if there's no time limit, the next fight will go on forever, so he wants to give Earth a chance." Give Earth a chance? Everyone present was full of question marks. It's precisely to get away from Earth that this place is hundreds of millions of kilometers away. What does it have to do with Earth? Child Emperor rubbed his hair and said, "It's because I knew this battle would be very short that I specially created a super camera, capable of capturing even light, Hearing this, everyone present looked at the camera in front of them. On the television, the two were calmly facing each other, talking to each other. You should understand the rules, right? Bai Ye explained the details of the battle to Saitama. Ah. I understand. Saitama lightly tapped his left palm with his right fist and said, just defeat you as quickly as possible the moment the countdown ends. Right, you bastard. Bai Ye sighed and covered his forehead. That's a good understanding, but you can't hold back. Attack me with the intention of killing me, otherwise this battle can't proceed. Of course, I've been looking forward to this battle for a long time, and I absolutely won't hold back. Saitama clenched his fist and said enthusiastically. As he spoke, Bai Ye released his own power field, filling an area of thousands of kilometers. In this position, the two seemed to be surrounded by steel, with gravity acting from all sides. This is really something, Saitama said enviously, feeling the pressure on his body. Now I don't need to find a foothold, I can just jump in a vacuum. Get ready, the battle is about to begin. A hint of excitement flashed in the eyes of the 18-meter-tall giant Bai Ye. When was the last time he fought seriously? It seemed like it was when he beat that all-knowing and all-powerful immortal in the group to pulp. And now, more than 1 billion times stronger than before, he had met his match again. Staring at the bald man in front of him, Bai Ye silently waited for the countdown in the main god space to end, while Saitama focused intently on the child emperor-specific stopwatch in his hand. As for the audience outside the orbit of Jupiter, they stared intently at the two on the television, their breathing gradually becoming heavier. 5 minutes, 3 minutes, 1 minute. As time gradually passed, everyone's hearts began to race. As time flowed by, it reached 0000. The instant Saitama's stopwatch countdown reached 0, Byakuya's right fist slammed into Saitama with all its might. Speed pierced through sound, only light witnessed this moment. Having never used his full strength since entering this state, Byakuya propelled his 6 or 7 meter long right fist with a force of 30 trillion tons, unleashing a terrifying kinetic energy at 10,000 times the speed of sound. What can 0.01 seconds accomplish? For an ordinary person, it's gone before they can even think. For Bang, perhaps it's enough time to unleash a complete water stream rock-smashing fist. For Boros in his normal state, throwing 100 punches is a threshold. But for Byakuya at this moment, 0.01 seconds is enough for him to run 20,000 meters and throw 10,000 punches with full force. Time can be subdivided for the strong. This brief 0.01 seconds, for Byakuya at this moment, is almost equivalent to half an hour of ample time for an ordinary person. Bai Ye's massive arm struck Saitama in an instant, sending him flying. Behind Saitama, due to the sheer speed, before he could even retreat a few meters, Bai Ye's figure reappeared. His right knee, nearly half Saitama's body size, lashed out again, slamming him back. Boom 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 boom. In this space-time frozen to the outside world, silent roars echoed continuously. Punches. Knees. Kicks. Elbows. In a mere fraction of a second, Bai Ye unleashed hundreds of blows around Saitama's body. Each impact was enough to tear a massive rift hundreds of kilometers wide across the Earth's surface, creating a hurricane and causing a horrific catastrophe capable of wiping out a biosphere. But in this battle, lasting only 1/100th of a second, the destructive aftershocks of the fist collisions on Jupiter hadn't yet spread, remaining confined to a limited area. After silently enduring hundreds of attacks, the battered Saitama suddenly raised his head, a glint of excitement flashing in his eyes. Bai Ye, you truly are the opponent I've been searching for. As he thought this, Saitama's right hand lashed out, colliding fiercely with Byakuya's gigantic fist. A serious punch. With the impact of the right fist, Byakuya felt intense pain coursing through his arm. A destructive force spread upwards. Under the influence of the force field, Saitama's punch evenly distributed the power to every cell of Byakuya's body. The force that should have only shattered half his body was instead absorbed entirely by Byakuya through the force field. It seemed that in the next moment, this force would pulverize him into the most basic particles. But in the next instant, as if time had jumped, Saitama saw Byakuya appear to his right, his gigantic fist slamming into his jaw, causing his body to tilt slightly. Faced with this confusion, Byakuya revealed a carefree smile. His body, which should have exploded just moments before, had, having absorbed enough damage, leaped to the next level. Constitution 8.08.1 Description: You unleash 100 attacks with a force of 30 trillion tons, your strength decreased by 0%, and your maximum strength increased by 31%. Repeating this once increases your maximum strength by 0.1. You withstood a punch of 1,000 trillion tons, increasing your maximum constitution attribute by 0.1. So, you're 33 times stronger than me now? I understand, Bai Ye grinned, transmitting his voice to Sadama's ears through his field. Now, prepare for the second round. At this moment, there are 0.008 seconds left until Bai Ye's return. Chapter 220 The Endless Battle. Talent 1, Endless, no upper limit, no bottleneck, no weakness, effort leads to strength. Talent 2, The Composure of the Strong, for every attribute point gained, an additional 0.1 unused attribute points are added. These talents were rooted in Bai Ye's bloodline, body, soul, and essence from the moment he transmigrated. To improve his physique, he had to endure damage. To improve his strength, he had to punch. To improve his mental state, he had to use his brain. But even if he did nothing, simply lying down, eating, drinking, and having fun, Bai Ye's body would strive to become stronger on its own. And this rate of improvement would accelerate exponentially with the increase in his three-dimensional attributes, increasing in additive, multiplicative, exponential, factorial, and so on. With the help of Talent 2, it would take a week to increase his attribute from 0.1 to 0.2 through full force training. But it only took 6 days to increase it from 0.2 to 0.3. Then came 5 days, 4 days, 3 days, 1 hour, 1 minute, 1 second. After Gu Ye broke through Bai Ye's essence, Bai Ye lost a motivation to become stronger. After defeating the chat group administrator, he hasn't seriously trained for a single day since. As for his reason? As a natural-born powerhouse, for Bai Ye, who has already secured his place at the top, enjoying the scenery along the way is part of the experience. Those strenuous training sessions are too deliberate for him, reaching the top naturally is perhaps more cost-effective. In any case, relying on his talent, Bai Ye will eventually stand at the top of the food chain. And on the day he fed Tatsumaki-oken, after his physical strength was amplified 1,000,000 times by Pim particles, Bai Ye, who hadn't trained in a long time, could clearly feel his attributes improving beyond his expectations. Just while playing around with Tatsumaki, without using his full strength, his attribute points increased by 0.1 in just a short time. And now, for Bai Ye when he's serious, with Sadama as his opponent, his strength improvement has finally crossed the threshold from multiplication to exponential growth for the first time. 6 months after transmigrating to Marvel, his health bar has finally surpassed his experience bar for the first time. Fight to the death, Sadama, on Jupiter, Bai Ye roared, unleashing a powerful right punch at Sadama's body. But before the fist even left his hand, Sadama's full-force right fist rained down like raindrops. Continuous serious punches, in an instant, dozens of punches struck various parts of Bai Ye's body. His constitution, which had just increased by 0.1, was still insufficient to withstand the damage, and Bai Ye's body exploded in an instant. Constitution 81828. Description: you withstood 35 punches of 1,000 trillion tons each, and your constitution attribute cap increased by 0.2. At this moment, there are 0.0075 seconds left before Bai Ye's return. The next moment, besides Sadama, Bai Ye, whose body had returned to its strongest state, seized a moment to catch his breath and unleashed a barrage of right fists that enveloped Sadama's body. Strength 8.08.1 Description: you unleash 100 attacks with a combined strength of 40 trillion tons. Strength decreased by 0%, maximum strength increased by 31%, maximum strength attribute increased by 0.1, 0.0073 seconds. As Bai Ye's fist struck, it wasn't just his physical body that underwent an increase. Bai Ye's spirit was also experiencing a terrifying transformation. To improve one's spirit attribute, one must think more and ponder more. Therefore, from the beginning of this battle, Bai Ye's mind had never stopped racing. Divine skill, serious thinking, from the instant the battle began, every 0.0001 seconds, billions of mathematical problems were generated and solved within Bai Ye. This massive amount of thinking caused a transformation in Bai Ye's spirit. 8.08.1 Description: you are seriously thinking. Spirit decreased by 0%, maximum spirit attribute increased by 0.1, 0.0072 seconds, a serious punch. Facing the attack, Saitama continued to throw a right punch, unleashing trillions of tons of power from his arm, which Bai Ye barely managed to catch. After a beating lasting 28 ten-thousandths of a second, this was the first time Bai Ye had caught Saitama's fist. Because with all three of Bai Ye's attributes increasing by 0.1, he found himself gradually able to see Saitama's trillion-ton punches clearly. Simply put, with the increase in attributes, he became higher, faster, and stronger. I can already, before Bai Ye could finish speaking, Saitama's even heavier and stronger punches rained down on him. Continuous serious punches, physique. 8.3 8.4, 0.0071 seconds. On Jupiter, the battle between the two Deo Supremas continued to clash and intertwine. But for those who came to watch, their attitudes varied. For the wealthy spectators, and even for Bang and Tatsumaki, the speed of the battle was too fast. Even if Child Emperor's super camera captured it and played it before their eyes, these people simply couldn't see it clearly. Even though Bai Ye and Saitama had exchanged hundreds of punches, these people's thoughts were still stuck on, is the battle finally about to begin? I can finally witness the battle between two powerful figures. On the scene, only two people could barely observe and keep up with the pace, Blast and Boros. In Boros's eyes, watching the increasingly intense battle, a feeling of excitement rose within him. This kind of battle is exactly what I've been dreaming of. I never thought I, Boros, would be fortunate enough to witness such a battle. Excitement surged within Boros. He was incredibly grateful to witness such a battle. Even if he died on the spot afterward, it would be worth it. Tears welled up in Boros's heart, but he forcibly suppressed them. Because in the time it took for his tears to flow, almost 0.1 seconds would have passed, and 10 battles would be over. On the other side, in Blast's eyes, things weren't as relaxed as Boros's. Strange, the speed of the battle, why is it getting faster and faster? Thoughts, generated with a significant delay compared to the speed of the fight, surfaced in his mind in a brief moment. Watching the battle scene on television, Blast almost popped his eyes out, a sense of foreboding rising within him. As this thought settled, Blast looked at the two who had instantly increased in strength and speed dozens of times, his face turning incredibly grim. In that instant, he thought of Zeno's paradox, the Achilles paradox. Zeno proposed that a tortoise start a race against Achilles 1,000 meters ahead of him, assuming Achilles' speed is 10 times that of the tortoise. When the race begins, if Achilles runs 1,000 meters in time t, the tortoise will be 100 meters ahead. When Achilles completes the next 100 meters in time t/10, the tortoise will still be 10 meters ahead. When Achilles completes the next 10 meters in time t/100, the tortoise will still be 1 meter ahead. Zeno believed that Achilles could continue to close the distance to the tortoise, but could never catch it. As Zeno proposed in Achilles' paradox, if time is infinitely subdivided into increasingly smaller segments, Achilles will never be able to catch the tortoise. What is a fleeting 0.01 seconds to an ordinary person might be infinitely large to these two. Of course, this isn't the case in reality, as the smallest unit of time, Planck, constrains the process. But if they continue to increase their strength at this rate, will the universe be destroyed by their battle first? Or will their battle time be divided to the length of Planck's time? Chapter 221 The battle suddenly ended. Name, Bai Ye lifespan. 19. Strength. 808, 5 Constitution. 808, 7 Spirit. 808, 3 Charisma. 1.4 plus unused attribute points. 0.2. There are currently 0.0054 seconds left before Bai Ye returns to the main god space. In less than 1/100th of a second of battle, Bai Ye's three-dimensional attributes have increased by an average of 0.5. This has successfully allowed Bai Ye's physical abilities to begin to rival Saitama's for the first time. Continuous serious punch, water stream rock smashing fist. On Jupiter, Saitama's fists transformed into countless fist shadows, continuously swung towards Bai Ye's surroundings. But in the next second, the power of each of his punches was deflected by Bai Ye, pouring out tens of thousands of miles away. Each deflected force could unleash thousands of times the power of the previous dinosaur killer meteorite on the ground. This ability, A hint of surprise flashed in Sadama's eyes. But in the next moment, Bai Ye's fist struck him again. This time, the increased force finally caused Sadama to feel noticeable pain. "I'm finally injured," a glint of excitement flashed in Sadama's eyes. The next moment, facing Bai Ye's continuous heavy punches, he didn't hesitate and quickly raised his hand to retaliate. Boom 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 boom. In the brief, fleeting moment, within the steel-like solidity of the ground, the atmosphere was still violently churned. In the blink of an eye, Bai Ye, who had just gained the upper hand, was forced back several steps by Sadama's punches. Description: attack detected. Analyzing opponent's data. Name: Sadama. Strength 858, 6 speed 858, 6 constitution 858, 6 spirit 858, 6 charisma. 1.1. Even without looking at the data on the description, Bai Ye could clearly feel Sadama's constantly increasing strength through the visceral impact of each punch. Feeling that he could now face an opponent head-on, Sadama's strength curve continued to rise amidst his heightened emotions. But none of that matters. Bai Ye's eyes remained calm as he watched as all attributes increased by another 0.1 with a wave of his hand, then he used even greater force to suppress it again. Since we can both grow infinitely stronger, let's see whose punch is faster and stronger. After all, the growth trends of exponential factorial and Nuth's arrow are completely different, three-dimensional attributes. Give it your all. In the distance, watching the two figures rapidly colliding and clashing, and with the pace increasing, Blast's feelings were incredibly complex. He, like the other onlookers, was beginning to lose track of the two's fighting. If this continued, with the endless increases, then by the time this 0.01 second battle was over, let alone Jupiter, the entire Milky Way galaxy, or even the universe, would be considered a great merit if they weren't destroyed by their battle. In that sense, Tornado's earlier relaying of Bai Ye's words about giving Earth a chance was already quite humble. This 0.01 second battle, it won't go on forever, will it? Blast worried. Thinking back to his serious response to Byakuya, he wished he could go back in time and slap himself. Fight, fight, fight. What's the point of fighting? Earth has finally produced these two brilliant talents, why fight for no reason? Wouldn't it be better to protect peace? With this thought, a gravity field enveloped Blast's hands. He wanted to transfer everyone back to Earth first. What do you want to do? Boros, the only one who could sense Blast's attack, felt the distorted space around him and panicked, wanting to see the whole scene. Then, in an instant, the black sphere enveloped everyone present and disappeared in a special teleportation. Before leaving, a faint, painful howl seemed to be heard from Boros. On Jupiter, Byakuya and Sadama sensed the disappearing presence in the distance. After a slight pause of a fraction of a second, they unleashed their power against each other without any pressure. With their worries gone, they could finally unleash their full power. Time ticked by, and the power increased at an ever-accelerating pace. 10 times? 100 times? 1,000 times? No, it was 234,924 times the power, time itself being cleaved in nanoseconds by the two of them. Finally, when time had passed and there were only 0.002134 seconds left before Bai Ye's return, the difference in their speed of power increase became apparent. This time, the first to be struck was Sadama's body. Boom, a silent blow. Sadama could feel his skin swelling and bruising from the impact. He had been surpassed. There were no excuses, his full force efforts had failed in terms of speed of growth. Sadama felt the distinct pain in his flesh, his emotions were detached, but besides the excitement of battle, he also felt a slight sense of resentment. As for Bai Ye, his expression remained calm, his fists striking harder and harder, leaving wounds on Sadama's body. I can keep improving. This was a perfectly natural thought in Bai Ye's mind. He knew clearly that if he wanted, he could infinitely improve before this 0.01 second window closed. He didn't need Sadama as an opponent, he only needed to throw a serious punch, using his current self as the enemy. Before this 0.01 second window ended, could his three-dimensional attributes reach 10 100 1000 10,000 10 cap 10 cap 10 cap 10? But none of that mattered. Bai Ye clearly realized how monstrous he was. If he wanted, he could increase his attributes as much as he pleased. Before time ran out, destroying a single universe? A multiverse? It was all just a matter of a thought. Planck's time limit was merely a loophole in the universe, not his problem. Before him, the born strongest, the universe should give way to him. The universe's inability to do so was its problem. As long as he was strong enough to blast this problematic universe to smithereens, then those meaningless limitations of light speed, time, and space would naturally cease to exist. So, let's fight. In an instant, their eyes met, and powerful fists lashed out at each other. I might die, feeling the power surge several times over before reaching him. Saitama inexplicably entertained this thought. After all, his healing ability wasn't terrifying compared to other attributes. For an ordinary person, a fatal wound like a pierced heart or shattered skull could be fatal. But I'm willing to sacrifice myself for this battle. A fiery glint flashed in Saitama's eyes as he pushed his body to its limit and unleashed a powerful punch at Bai Ye. But just before their fists collided, whoosh, a flash of light, pulling Bai Ye away from his spot. Chapter 222 The Victory of the Universe. On Jupiter, after unleashing his full force punch, Saitama, who had been facing certain death, stared blankly at the disappearing figure in front of him. What happened to the promised 0.01 seconds? What's going on? Saitama, his face bruised and swollen from the beating, withdrew his right fist and stood frozen in place. He clearly felt that the time hadn't been up yet. In fact, the time had indeed reached 0.01 seconds, triggering the God's return mechanism. But for the two of them, there was still about 0.001271 seconds of leeway before returning. The answer was, the battle between the two distorted the scale of time. In the final moments of their fight, each punch and kick could have shattered the earth in an instant. And when such terrifying power and speed were concentrated in their fists, the pressure caused a space-time distortion like a black hole. For the two of them, the time hadn't been up yet, but the space of the universe had already secretly accelerated because it couldn't withstand their clash. If they hadn't done this, under Byakuya's fist, one of Saitama and the universe would have died in the next second. Therefore, to prevent the universe from shattering due to the clash of two powerful enemies, they used the rules of time to end the battle prematurely. The victor in this battle was neither Byakuya nor Saitama. This was the victory of the universe. The universe, now over 10 billion years old, once again cleverly used the rules to humbly survive under their fists. Meanwhile, while Saitama was still stunned, compared to the wise universe, the mindless Jupiter exploded in an instant. This largest and fastest rotating planet among the 8 planets of the solar system, after the two exchanged millions of punches on its surface, finally met its annihilation. A second later, the entire planet was covered with visible craters, densely packed across hundreds of thousands of miles. Then, this massive planet, with a mass 1,000th that of the Sun, trembled violently under the relentless bombardment, and after taking its full damage, exploded in an instant, turning into cosmic dust. Saitama, who had just been pondering, felt a violent jolt, then was propelled into the sky by the shockwave of Jupiter's destruction, heading towards the boundless universe. Meanwhile, on Earth, a flash of black light appeared, and the entire crowd that had gathered returned to the entrance of the Hero Association in City A. What happened? Where's the fight? Why are we back? Wasn't the fight about to start? Where's my fight? In an instant, the scene erupted into a huge uproar, and a deafening cry of grief drowned out all other sounds. No. 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 Boros finally couldn't contain his emotions, a tear of sorrow streaming down his face, filled with unbearable grief. My battle with the strongest warriors, all because of you, you dog. I missed the chance to witness the battle of unparalleled powerhouses. Boros pointed at Blast, his voice filled with rage. Blast closed his eyes and sensed the situation. After a few seconds, he finally breathed a sigh of relief. Great, the universe wasn't destroyed by those two in 0.01 seconds. What are you talking about? How did you teleport us back so quickly? Child Emperor asked from the side. Because if we hadn't left, I wouldn't have been able to predict what would happen next. Blast's expression was extremely solemn. The intensity of the battle increased exponentially. 0.01 seconds might not have been enough for this universe to disappear, but now Jupiter, it's probably gone. What? Everyone present was shocked. Blast pointed to the camera and said, it shows a part of their battle. You can feel it when it's slowed down. As for me, I'll go to Jupiter now. Blast took a deep breath and said, after all, One Punch Man is still there. I hope the environment there will be better and more peaceful. With that, Blast disappeared from his spot. When he reappeared, he was in a dusty expanse of space. Gazing at the shattered, scattered planet before him, Even with a sense of unease, Blast's heart still skipped a beat. Thankfully, it wasn't completely destroyed. Jupiter will reassemble itself under gravity, and we should be able to handle the rest, Blast thought to himself. Then, a figure ran across the shattered dust, appearing before him in a flash and greeting him. Seeing Saitama alive, unharmed except for some bruises, Blast was overjoyed. He then took Saitama's arm and led him back to Earth. Wow, finally back. It's so much easier when I can breathe, Saitama exclaimed after taking a deep breath. Sensei, your face. Genos was utterly shocked. This was the first time he'd seen his teacher so disheveled. Hey, bald guy, who won the final battle? Tatsumaki crossed her arms, her gaze fixed on Saitama's bruised and swollen face, already having a guess. Who won? Saitama scratched his head, recalling, I don't know why Bai Ye disappeared early, but I guess he won, otherwise he would have almost been killed. Oh, I've already edited out the footage from earlier. At this moment, Child Emperor suddenly said, attracting the attention of the others. After I slow them down, you can watch the battle, but since this battle scene isn't complete, I can't do anything about the rest, Child Emperor shrugged. Meanwhile, on the other side, in the main God Plaza, Bai Ye's 18-meter tall figure appeared, maintaining his punching posture. Flowing water. Rock-smashing fist, to prevent instantly killing 90% of the reincarnators in the entire main God space. In an instant, a power powerful enough to destroy a planet was deflected by Bai Ye and blasted into the sky. Instantly, everyone around felt a gust of wind, and the terrifying gale directly blew them all away. For a moment, only Bai Ye remained standing in the original spot on the once noisy main God Plaza. What happened? Why did I come back? Bai Ye withdrew his hand and said speechlessly, he clearly felt that the time hadn't come yet. Never mind, let's just call this a draw, Bai Ye sighed. He pulled out the PIM particle shrinking device from his special storage, and in an instant, Bai Ye's body returned to normal. Name, Bai Ye. Lifespan 19. Strength 977, 1 plus 0.6 Constitution 987, 2 plus 0.6 Spirit 967, 0 plus 0.6 Charisma 1.4 plus unused attribute points 0.4. Looking at the changes in his attribute panel after his body shrank, even back to normal, Bai Ye's current strength was roughly comparable to his previous strength after using the PIM particles. However, these changes no longer stirred any emotion in Bai Ye. After all, the current attribute panel was merely a power regulator that could be freely increased upwards. Chapter 223 Return to the main God space. Mr. Bai's level is fluctuating wildly again. In the chat group, Yu Buquan muttered to himself as he watched Shenlan's level rise and fall once more. After so many times, he was already somewhat used to it. After a few seconds of fluctuation, Bai Ye's level settled at level 8. At this level, a full force attack could probably loosen the soil on the entire Earth's surface and reduce the Earth to cosmic dust within a minute. But it seems, we're falling further and further behind Senior Bai. Kimishima Kana also noticed the level changes, holding her teacup and sighing inwardly. In the chat group, the difficulty of each level increase only increases exponentially. Apart from Bai Ye, the highest level in the group was still only level 5, which Uchiha Sasuke barely reached through the destructive power of his ninjutsu. Rather than saying we're falling behind Senior Bai, it's more accurate to say we're following the path Senior Bai has trod. The current improvement in the group members' strength all depends on the resources shared by the administrators. Seeing the messages in the group congratulating Bai Ye on his breakthrough, Kimishima Kana casually sent out a congratulatory message as well. Meanwhile, in the main God Plaza, all the reincarnators who had been thrown back by the hurricane looked up and saw a powerful, visible energy surge into the sky like a long dragon. It then crashed into the golden curtain of the sky, unleashing a deafening roar and creating a raging storm. Looking at the figure standing alone in the main God Plaza, without needing any prompting, everyone knew that he was undoubtedly the current number 1 in the main God space. Since Bai Ye killed the Hero Association's reincarnators, the rankings in the main God space had begun to fluctuate dramatically, especially the disappearance of the former number 1, which caused a huge shock. After all, the number 1, who had just purchased a level 12 item, had died in a relatively peaceful mission in the blink of an eye, and no one recognized the reappearing number 1. Everyone was speculating about what kind of person this number 1 was, until today, when these reincarnators finally saw him. They never expected their first meeting to be such a pleasant surprise. Those reincarnators with particularly good memories, who frequently frequented the plaza, stared wide-eyed. Looking at Bai Ye's unmasked face, wasn't he the newcomer from the main god space not long ago? Standing in the plaza, Bai Ye observed the reincarnators who only dared to watch from afar, not daring to approach him, as if he were livestock. Under Bai Ye's icy gaze, these people couldn't help but feel a chill, silently reassuring themselves that it was alright, killing in this space was punished, and even peerless experts wouldn't dare to act recklessly. Looks like a few interesting fellows have finally arrived. Bai Ye's gaze shifted, looking at the group approaching from afar. Such a commotion, likely heard throughout the entire planet, was bound to be deafening, and naturally wouldn't escape the notice of those experts. Soon, a beautiful woman, carried by waves tens of meters high, surged towards them. Another flash of light appeared, and a burly white man, his body wreathed in golden lightning, arrived instantly, his gaze fixed intently on Bai Ye. Behind Bai Ye, a thin man dressed in a dark blue outfit, his face obscured, emerged from the shadows. In just a moment, a dozen men, women, and children of various genders and appearances surrounded Bai Ye. These were all among the top 30 strongest individuals on this planet. As for those who didn't come, they were either unsure of their chances or were still on missions. In the brief silence, a slightly aged man stepped forward and asked, "I am currently the strongest in East Asia. You must be number one, sir. You are truly young and promising. Judging from your appearance, are you perhaps from Asia? Don't try to get close to me." Bai Ye waved his hand. "According to you, I'm just a native of this mission world, and I have little to do with you. Besides, the bloodline systems of each world are completely different. In terms of bloodline, I have absolutely no connection with you." Bai Ye waved his hand calmly. The old man's words reminded Bai Ye of his own family in the Marvel Universe. After all, Bai Ye didn't just appear out of thin air in the Marvel Universe. Although his parents were immigrants, he still had a bunch of distant relatives. After Bai Ye ruled the planet, anyone in the Chinese community who even remotely shared his surname claimed to be related to him. The Chinese community even specifically asked him if he wanted Bai Ye to return home and acknowledge his ancestors. However, he rejected all of this, finding it too boring. He was already satisfied with becoming a Buddha and an ancestor on his own. Why would he need to acknowledge his ancestors? Besides, why would he need to worship ancestors if he went back now? He felt it was a waste of time to sit on top and have those clan elders kowtow to him. At the scene, Bai Ye's words caused a slight silence. These people finally confirmed Bai Ye's identity. He came from a mission world, had no connection to anyone, and was someone they could try to win over. Even a weak force could become the strongest with Bai Ye's addition. Suddenly, everyone's eyes burned with fervor. But the next moment, Bai Ye spoke first. "Now, who among you can quickly give me an invitation to level 5 reincarnator? I need it." Stunned, everyone stared at Bai Ye, who had spoken without hesitation, for a moment. Was he asking them for something? It was far too assertive. "What are you standing there for? Give it to me now." Bai Ye impatiently reached out to the crowd. I happen to have a level 5 one here." At this moment, a bald man immediately took out a golden envelope and handed it over. Bai Ye caught it directly and tossed the invitation into the illusory space. "Okay, as a return favor for your help, I don't have much else to do. Is there anyone among these people you want to kill? I can kill them for you while I'm at it." Bai Ye looked at the bald man in front of him, too lazy to ask his name, and directly asked what he wanted. Cold sweat instantly poured down the bodies of these reincarnators. Looking at Bai Ye's calm expression, everyone present knew he was serious. "Damn it, why isn't this guy playing by the rules?" Everyone cursed inwardly, having never seen such a lawless guy before. The bald reincarnator was also shocked by Bai Ye's words, and the thought of having Bai Ye kill all the high-level reincarnators present even crossed his mind. However, he dismissed the idea in an instant, and said with a smile, "I am Nunura from India, and I would like to invite you to join our country. If you agree, I am willing to give up my position as leader." If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 224 Destroyed to Ashes. Let me join? Forget it. You missed your chance to make a wish this time. Let's talk again next time we meet, at the main God Plaza, Facing the invitation from the Indian reincarnators, Bai Ye refused without hesitation. What trash wanted him to join? If he really wanted to build a power base, he would have created a great main god co-prosperity sphere, incorporating all nations to conquer reincarnators on other planets. Too lazy to argue with these people, Bai Ye summoned the main god panel with a wave of his hand. On the panel, he could find the option to return to the real world. Returning to the original world cost 10 reward points per day, while returning to previously experienced story world cost 1000 reward points per day. The prices were undeniably a bit high. Staying in the main god space was free. After completing his first mission, Bai Ye could stay there indefinitely, obtaining supplies through reward points. By the way, after Ivanov died, how is the power now? Bai Ye suddenly asked, causing a slight awkwardness in the room. What else could he do? It's survival of the fittest, after all. What's the point of talking about truth, goodness, and beauty in the main god space? Seeing the expressions on these people's faces, Bai Ye guessed what was going on and nodded, pressing the return option in front of him. Immediately, a beam of light carried Bai Ye away, leaving behind a group of bewildered reincarnators. This powerful individual's personality is hard to fathom. I feel like the days ahead won't be easy, the reincarnators thought to themselves, looking at the empty plaza. As for the bald reincarnator, he stared blankly at the red test tube in his hand, detected a tier 12 intermediate item, PIM particles, effect? I got this in exchange for a level 5 item? I'm rich. Looking at the disappearing figure before him, the bald man wanted to prostrate himself in worship. In the Naruto world, as Bai Ye's first world as a reincarnator, this place was directly chosen by the main god as the real world. With a flash of light, Bai Ye appeared directly inside the newly built Naruto building. Who dares to trespass into the Hokages? Lord Byakuya. Several Anbu members suddenly appeared, intending to subdue the uninvited guest, but upon recognizing Byakuya, they immediately knelt on one knee in respect. Byakuya nodded slightly, seeing no need to engage with him. He listened for a while with his eyes closed, then located Uchiha Sasuke within the rebuilt and expanded Konoha village. Taking a step, Byakuya entered a state of intangibility, his body disappearing from the spot, passing through layers of buildings to arrive before the training Sasuke. For some time now, Uchiha Sasuke had been living a very leisurely life, practically making up for all the happiness he had lost in the past. First, his strength was increasing at a visible rate through training. Second, he used the impure world reincarnation and the samsara of heavenly life technique, using the ashes of the Uchiha clan to help all his clansmen win the resurrection tournament. At this moment, immersed in his training, he sensed someone approaching. Before Sasuke could turn around, he heard a cold voice in his mind. Reincarnator number 1 invites you to become a reincarnator. Do you accept, yes or no? The cold voice startled Sasuke. Turning around, he saw Bai Ye smiling and urging him, hurry up and accept the voice in your head. I've been out having fun for so long. I can't wait to go back. If you choose yes, you'll go to that god space, right? Sasuke asked, clicking yes without much hesitation. A large amount of information was generated in his mind the next moment, but Bai Ye had already communicated with them in the chat group beforehand, so he wasn't too panicked. After you finish arranging things here, hurry up and complete a mission in the god space. After that, I can travel to and from the god space through you, Bai Ye said. He wasn't worried at all about whether Sasuke could complete the mission. After all, the other party still had several PIM particles that he had given him to protect himself. As long as he didn't mess around, the first mission would be a piece of cake. And if all else failed, as long as he wasn't instantly killed, he could still ask Bai Ye to send him over through the chat group. Once Bai Ye was there, the whole world would have to worry about whether he would be raped by the Bai Ye of the past. After a brief chat with Sasuke, and once the latter had arranged everything, Bai Ye swiped the group invitation button and clicked return. In an instant, Bai Ye, who had been away from Marvel for over 2 months, returned to his loyal Earth. An undiscovered plane has been detected. Report the coordinates of this plane as a mission world. Reporting will grant a large number of reward points based on the plane's level, yes or no. When Bai Ye returned to Marvel, to his surprise, the main god space abruptly spoke. Looking at the reappearing options, Bai Ye hesitated for a moment before immediately choosing no. After all, it was his own planet, it was better to remain safe. The next moment, Bai Ye looked up and saw 4 or 5 people flying over New York. Only then did Bai Ye suddenly remember that before he left, He had awakened superpowers in everyone. That meant there were now at least tens of millions of people with different superpowers on Earth in the Marvel Universe. Driven by curiosity, Bai Ye leaped lightly to an altitude of 10,000 meters, focusing his attention on the planet below. He quickly and unexpectedly heard all the sounds within the entire planet. With his average attributes approaching 8, Bai Ye could easily use his field of view to envelop the entire planet and hear all sounds from Earth if he wanted. After focusing on events on Earth, Bai Ye could sense the myriad of strange abilities across the globe. Flight, enlargement, passing through walls, and teleportation were just the basics. Some abilities were indeed quite impressive in strength, stronger ones like vector control and electromagnetic drive made Bai Ye's eyes light up. However, as he focused on these abilities, Bai Ye's brow furrowed deeply. Because in addition to what he wanted to perceive, other things began to flood his mind. For example, the cries of the bullied, the insults directed at him, and all sorts of crimes from around the world. Previously, Bai Ye's strength hadn't reached this level, nor had he even considered such things. After all, evil avoided him like cockroaches in the dark encountering light, never daring to show its face before him. But now, with his hearing fully enhanced, he couldn't help but notice these dark corners. Damn dogs, they're ruining my mood, Bai Ye cursed under his breath, then vanished in an instant, his right fist lashing out forward. Boom 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 boom, in that instant. Thousands of people in New York City were blasted to smithereens. Chapter 225 Arkham Asylum. In New York City, a blunt thug cornered a teenage girl in an alleyway. "I'm warning you, don't mess around, or you'll regret it when I call the police," the girl threatened, backing away in fear. "Go ahead and call the police," the thug leered. "I love this kind of thing. Do you know who I am? My relative is a manager at Value Line Corporation. Those cops wouldn't dare touch me." Hearing Value Line Corporation, a flicker of despair crossed the girl's eyes. Value Line Corporation was now a behemoth on par with Stark Industries, and the presidents of both companies held the power of life and death over the entire planet. Behind the scenes, the power of the leaders of Value Line and Stark Industries was described as follows: a flick of the finger could change policy, a word could influence an entire continent, a sneeze could silence the world, a swivel chair could command obedience. Under such extreme power, even if the leaders themselves didn't have such inclinations, the status of the employees of these two companies naturally rose accordingly. In most cases, working for these two groups wields even more power than being an official. "Ha ha ha, resist all you want, I love your style," the blunt thug grinned maliciously, about to step forward, but a hand landed on his shoulder. "I heard your relative is a manager at Value Line. I'd like to know his identity, could you please tell me?" A gentle voice sounded beside the thug, making him impatiently say, "Fuck, who's got a death wish to block my way?" But when he turned around, he saw a man holding a baton, his entire body encased in a red bodysuit. The moment he recognized the man, his brain, which had been clouded by the second in command, immediately cleared. His lips trembled, unable to speak, while another girl beside him exclaimed in surprise, "Daredevil, damn it, how did I run into Daredevil?" The blunt thug thought sadly, looking at the other's smirking lips. He already regretted his bad luck today. But without giving the other a chance to regret it, the blonde-haired man exploded in Daredevil's astonished gaze, turning into blood that splattered onto the alley wall. Blood flowed continuously down the wall, dripping and sliding down with the carcass, appearing incredibly pervasive. Daredevil turned warily, only to see a man slowly withdrawing his right hand and turning his head to look directly at him. "Looks like your eyes are healed, Matthew, Bai." "Your Majesty." Daredevil looked at Bai Ye, whom he hadn't seen for months, but compared to before, their identities were now worlds apart. As for the girl beside him, she was completely stunned, wondering if she was some kind of destined soulmate, that a small crime had actually attracted Bai Ye's attention. Thinking of this, the girl nervously twisted her hands together, secretly glancing at Bai Ye's profile. Bai Ye withdrew his hand, not even glancing at the crimson carcass beside him. In that instant, on a whim, he had smashed every criminal in New York to pieces. Approximately 4,000 people died. But this was far from enough compared to the crimes he had just witnessed worldwide. Originally, Bai Ye didn't care much for crime, having been forced into a life of crime himself and seen his share of disgusting things. As long as it wasn't disgusting in front of him, he was fine. However, as his strength increased, his perspective, physical, broadened, and things he couldn't see or hear before flooded his mind. During his brief browsing just now, He discovered some things that crossed his physical limits, some of which disgusted him. He worried that if he had to hear such things every time he tried to use his hearing, he would be utterly disgusted. Therefore, to avoid seeing disgusting things, he had to take action, like killing all the cockroaches causing trouble in the shadows. From today onwards, rape, murder, human trafficking, bullying, and cyberbullying were things that only Bai Ye permitted. Now, go find Stark and have them meet at the White House in half an hour, Bai Ye instructed Daredevil, giving a simple order. Understood, I will deliver His Majesty's message accurately. Daredevil nodded, sensing that Bai Ye's decision would likely have a huge impact on society. After receiving a clear answer, Bai Ye nodded slightly and vanished from the spot, leaving Daredevil and the girl alone in the alley. Madam, I may not have time to take you home. Please be careful on your way, Daredevil said with a warm smile. 10 minutes later, with Daredevil's notification, news of Bai Ye's return spread across the globe in an instant. Especially after learning that Bai Ye was preparing to hold a meeting, Kingpin and his men, who had been somewhat complacent, became vigilant. They all speculated about the main purpose of Bai Ye's meeting and rushed to the White House. Among them, after hearing the news that Bai Ye had eliminated more than 4,000 criminals upon his return, Kingpin had a vague sense of unease. Although he had tried his best to restrain his men's behavior, his team was not clean after all, and trying to remain untainted was simply wishful thinking. Half an hour later, when Kingpin arrived at the White House, he saw Bai Ye sitting cross-legged in the same office chair that Stark usually used, looking at everyone with his fingers interlaced. Meanwhile, Rogaides and Stark had already arrived, along with Professor X and other elite generals under Bai Ye. He was clearly the last to arrive. Your Majesty, I apologize, I got a little carried away and am late. Kingpin hesitated for a moment, looking directly at Bai Ye, who was staring at him, before deciding not to make excuses and to tell the truth. After all, Bai Ye didn't like people lying. Bai Ye nodded without blaming him. What was wrong with enjoying himself? As long as he arrived within the allotted time, there was no problem. It seems everyone is here. He looked at everyone present and slowly began. Next, I have two things to inform you of, and you will carry them out. First, my abilities have recently improved a bit, and I can now hear almost the entire world, so I can detect all sorts of noise entering my brain, such as people secretly cursing me and all kinds of crimes around the world. Although I just scanned the entire city of New York, it would be too troublesome to continue cleaning them up one by one. Bai Ye scanned the people and said, so, I want you to eliminate all those annoying sounds within a month. I don't care if you use AI to monitor everyone, or if you have Professor X brainwash everyone, Bai Ye said in an extremely calm tone. Anyway, when I refocus my attention on this planet, I don't want any disharmony. Everyone, even if you're just pretending, you have to keep pretending, otherwise, it will bother me a lot, and if I'm unhappy, I don't want anyone else to be happy either. The people present, faced with Bai Ye's demanding answer, everyone present felt a wave of exasperation. It's too domineering to make everyone unhappy just because I'm unhappy, Stark said first. The problem is, this guy in front of me actually has that ability. No problem, Stark said first. There are plenty of ways to shut those people up. It's just a matter of making a network caller. Give me a night, and I can make it. Mass production can be achieved within a day, and everyone will have one within a week. It's just a small problem. No one will complain. As he spoke, Stark agreed with his own suggestion. He was inclined to use his abilities to protect everyone and had always had this idea. However, he hadn't implemented it due to the obstruction of Kingpin and others. Now that Bai Ye had brought it up, everything made sense. Once this collar was invented, most crimes would naturally disappear, achieving a kind of universal harmony. Bai Ye nodded in agreement with Stark's suggestion. As long as the goal was achieved, he didn't mind the other party's methods. Next is the second point. I remember there shouldn't be so many superhumans, Bai Ye said, looking at Stark, Kingpin, and Rodriguez. I just counted, there are approximately 354.2 million superpowered individuals globally, but isn't the registered number only 345.69 million? Bai Ye asked somewhat doubtfully. Can someone explain to me where these extra 9 million superpowered individuals came from? The three people present hesitated. Finally, Rodriguez spoke first, explaining, Your Majesty, because the manufacture of superpower awakening devices isn't complicated, as long as you have the materials and blueprints, you can easily replicate one. Because the number of superpowered individuals is fixed, those who didn't register will naturally be unwilling to accept it, and in this market, a black market naturally emerges. In other words, those people created this even after I explicitly denied it, Bai Ye confirmed. Upon hearing this, the people present immediately felt uneasy, but still nodded. I think I made myself clear enough before. Only after registration can one become a superhuman. So, this should be considered a crime of deceiving the emperor, right? Bai Ye scratched his head slightly and said, I remember what the punishment would be in ancient times. Shock. Everyone stared at Bai Ye in astonishment, especially Professor X and Stark. Was this guy planning to play a game of 9 clans elimination? Thinking about those 9 million people plus 9 clans, if they played the matching game, an entire country might be wiped out. Don't worry, it's not that serious. What kind of person do you think I am? Seemingly noticing their tension, Bai Ye waved his hand casually and said, just have those people turn themselves in as soon as possible. After their superpowers are removed through the reversal device, it'll be recorded. Few the people present breathed a sigh of relief, almost scared to death. Anyway, let's get these 2 things done as soon as possible, otherwise, it won't be good if I make a big deal out of it. Bai Ye smiled. These words naturally received assurances from everyone present. Meanwhile, Kingpin and the others were already considering having Stark create a more advanced version of the collar after this meeting, granting him more lenient authority and avoiding overreacting to everything. Just as Bai Ye was holding a meeting with Kingpin and the others. In Gotham City's prison, Gavin was tightly bound in steel alloy, his eyes filled with a calm madness. Nearly 2 months had passed since the deaths of his wife, children, and elderly parents, and he was naturally seeking revenge against the entire underworld. However, compared to the small-scale crackdowns on crime before, his methods in these 2 months had become 10 times more brutal. To die instantly at his hands was considered extremely lucky. Most people slowly succumbed to agony and pain. Ironically, under his ruthless hunt, Gotham City's security had improved significantly, and the fear he instilled was even greater than that of Batman and the Joker. After all, at Batman's hands, you would at most be seriously injured but not killed. And ordinary people didn't even have the chance to be played with by the Joker. But Gavin would torture them. Faced with extreme physical pain, most people would find that familial love, desire, and everything else seemed easily discarded, only pain remained eternal. This naturally drew Batman's ire, as it clashed completely with his so-called principles. In Gotham City, killing was unacceptable, regardless of who did it or what the reason, no matter how legitimate. So, after a month-long manhunt, he was successfully captured by Batman and imprisoned in Arkham Asylum, receiving guards stricter than any other mentally ill criminal. How, Gavin chuckled hoarsely in the darkness. After the deaths of his wife and children, his heart had despaired, just like the city itself, mired in boundless silence. Now, only a heart consumed by vengeful evil remained. In these 2 months of carnage, he had rediscovered the meaning of life, to utterly destroy all evil in the world, for which he was willing to pay any price. Even trapped in Arkham, he hadn't given up hope. Perhaps when he escaped, the people of this city would discover the monster they had created. But before that, a familiar message appeared in the long-dormant chat group Deep Blue, at citizens of the Sin City, still need help? I finished everything I was doing. Ho ha ho ha. Ho ha ho ha. Seeing this message, Gavin burst into maniacal laughter, his trembling body causing the connecting chains to rattle and jingle. A moment later, Bai Ye saw a positive reply in the chat group. He's in Arkham, just entered a mental hospital, come quick. Group members citizens of the Sin City sent a cross-server request to the chat group, 041. End of this chapter. Thank you so much for reading until the end. Don't forget to give it a like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription or donation encourages us to continue. Thank you all. See you in the next video.